When I came home from my doctor's appointment, my key wouldn't fit the front door. Before I could knock, my son Ethan pulled the curtain aside just enough for me to see him. My daughter Melissa and my daughter-in-law Amanda standing inside the home my late husband and I had spent 40 years paying for. "Mom," Ethan said without opening the door, "this isn't your house anymore." Amanda set a trash bag filled with my clothes on the porch. I reached into my purse, unfolded an old envelope stamped by the county recorder's office, and quietly smiled. They had changed the locks, but they had forgotten to check the official records. If this story touches something in your heart, I'd love for you to stay with me until the end. Please like this video, subscribe if you enjoy stories about courage and justice, and share your thoughts in the comments. Most of all, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing how far these stories travel and hearing from friends around the world. The home William and I built was not fancy enough for magazines, but it held every important chapter of my life. It sat on a quiet street outside Columbus, Ohio, with 2 maple trees in the front yard and a narrow brick walkway. William laid himself one hot July weekend when Ethan was 9 and Melissa was 6. I still remembered him kneeling in the dirt sweat, running down his temples, refusing to let me call a contractor because, as he said, a man ought to know the path his wife walks on. That was William. Practical, quiet, stubborn in the kindest way. He worked as an electrician for most of his life. His hands were always rough, his nails always marked with the evidence of labor. No soap could completely erase. I worked as an administrative assistant at a small law office downtown. I answered phones, typed letters, organized files, scheduled appointments, and learned more about paperwork than most people ever wanted to know. Deeds, affidavits, probate forms, powers of attorney, notarized statements. Those things were not mysterious to me. They were ordinary paper with extraordinary power. But to my children, I was just mom. To Ethan, I was the woman who packed his lunch in paper bags and ironed his shirts before school concerts. To Melissa, I was the mother who stayed up sewing a costume the night before a play because she forgot to tell me she needed one. I did not resent that. Mothers are often remembered most for what they gave, not what they knew. William and I bought our house after years of saving. We did not inherit it. No wealthy uncle handed us the keys. We skipped vacations, we clipped coupons. We bought second-hand furniture and pretended it was vintage before that word became fashionable. When the kids wanted brand-name sneakers, William took extra weekend calls, and I stayed late at the law office filing boxes until my back ached. Every payment on that house felt like a promise. When we finally paid off the mortgage, William took me to dinner at a modest steakhouse, the kind with dim lights and a laminated menu, and he raised his glass of iced tea like it was champagne. "To the only castle we'll ever need," he said. I laughed then. I did not know how much those words would mean later. Our house had been full once. Ethan's baseball gloves by the back door, Melissa's hair ribbons in the bathroom drawer, birthday cakes on the kitchen counter, Christmas mornings with wrapping paper scattered across the living room floor. William fixing outlets, tightening cabinet handles, repairing anything before it could completely break. Me standing at the stove, listening to everyone talk at once, and feeling in those moments that I had everything a woman could ask for. Then the children grew up. Ethan married Amanda, a woman with perfect nails, sharp eyes, and a smile that always seemed to arrive a second too late. Melissa married Daniel Turner and moved 30 minutes away. She had one daughter, Emily, who was sweet in a quiet, observant way. Of all my grandchildren, Emily was the one who noticed when I was tired before I said anything. After William died, the house changed sound. That is the only way I can explain it. The walls were the same. The rooms were the same. His work boots were still by the basement stairs for weeks because I could not bring myself to move them. But the house sounded emptier. The refrigerator hummed louder. The floorboards creaked more sharply at night. Even the clock in the hallway seemed cruel, ticking through hours he would never come home to fill. For the first few months, Ethan and Melissa came around often. They brought casseroles, handled small errands, and told me I should not be alone too much. I was grateful. A grieving widow can mistake attention for devotion when her heart is desperate enough. At first, Ethan asked ordinary questions. Mom, did Dad have life insurance? Mom, do you know where he kept the warranty papers? Mom, do you need help with the bank account? I answered what I felt comfortable answering. I showed him some folders, but not all. Old habits from the law office stayed with me. I never handed anyone every document at once, not even my own child, especially not when grief made everyone emotional. Then his questions changed. Where's the deed to the house? Did Dad put my name anywhere? Have you updated your will? Do you know what happens if you get sick suddenly? The first time he asked about the deed, we were sitting at the kitchen table. I had made coffee, though he barely touched his. His eyes kept moving toward the small hallway that led to my bedroom where William's old file cabinet stood inside the closet. The deed is safe, I told him. He frowned. Safe where? In a safe place. He gave a short laugh, like I had made a childish joke. Mom, I'm not some stranger. I'm your son. I know who you are, Ethan. His jaw tightened, but he let it go that day. Melissa used a softer method. She would sit beside me on the couch, pat my hand, and lower her voice as though speaking too loudly might break me. Mom, paperwork is overwhelming at your age, she said one afternoon. You shouldn't have to worry about all that legal stuff anymore. I looked at her carefully. I worked in legal offices for 26 years. I know, but that was different. Things change. Forms change. Rules change. Common sense hasn't changed. She smiled, but her eyes cooled. I'm just trying to help. That became their favorite phrase. We're just trying to help. Ethan said it when he offered to organize my bills. Melissa said it when she asked me to give her a copy of my Social Security card just in case. Amanda said it when she came over and began opening cabinets without asking, saying the kitchen needed a more modern system. Amanda was the first one to call my home future family property. She said it at Thanksgiving, standing in my dining room, while I carried in a dish of sweet potatoes. She was looking around at the crown molding William had installed years before. This place has so much potential, she said. With the right updates, it could be a beautiful future family home. I set the dish down slowly. It already is a family home. Amanda's smile did not move. Of course. I just mean for the next generation. Ethan glanced at her, then at me. Melissa suddenly became very interested in folding napkins. That was the first time I felt something cold move through the room. After that, small things began to disappear. Not valuable things at first. A property tax receipt from the side drawer. A folder of homeowners' insurance papers. A letter from the county about assessment records. When I asked, Ethan said I must have misplaced them. Mom, you've had a lot on your mind. That sentence was gentle on the surface, but there was a hook under it. You're grieving, you're old, you're confused. You can't trust yourself. I began paying attention. At night, after everyone left, I would sit at William's old desk and write down dates. Ethan asked about deed March 14th. Melissa requested bank paperwork April 2nd. Amanda searched kitchen drawer April 18th. Property tax receipt missing May 6th. The more I wrote, the clearer the pattern became. They were not helping me manage my life. They were studying how to take control of it. Still, I did not want to believe the worst. A mother's heart is foolish that way. It will build excuses out of scraps. Ethan was stressed. Melissa was worried. Amanda was ambitious, but maybe not cruel. I told myself these things because the alternative was too painful. Then, one Sunday after church, Ethan came by alone. He wore a navy polo shirt and that serious expression men use when they want to sound responsible while asking for something selfish. "Mom," he said, "we need to talk about the house." I folded my hands in my lap. "Do we?" "Yes, you're here by yourself. The place is too much for you. Taxes are going up. Repairs are expensive. And honestly, it makes more sense for the family if we put everything in order now." "What does in order mean?" He leaned back. "It means we stop pretending you can handle everything forever." There it was. Not concern, not love, ownership. I looked past him toward the framed photo of William on the mantel. He was smiling in that picture, one arm around me, both of us standing in front of the house the year we paid it off. I wondered what he would have said if he could hear his son speaking to me like I was an obstacle in my own life. I did not raise my voice. I had learned long ago that quiet questions make dishonest people more nervous than shouting ever could. "Ethan," I asked, "who told you I wasn't handling things?" He blinked. "Nobody has to tell me. I can see it." "What exactly can you see?" He shifted in his chair. "Mom, don't make this difficult." That was when I knew. The boy I had raised was no longer asking whether I needed help. He was deciding that my independence was inconvenient. After he left, I went to my bedroom, closed the door, and pulled out the small metal box William had kept on the top shelf of the closet. I had not opened it since the week after his funeral. My hands trembled as I set it on the bed. Inside were old deeds, insurance papers, tax receipts, certified copies, and a sealed envelope with my name written in William's handwriting. Carolyn. Just my name. Nothing more. I did not open it yet. I only sat there with my fingers resting on the envelope, feeling the weight of every year William and I had spent protecting that home. For the first time since his death, I whispered into the quiet room, "What did you know, William?" And somewhere deep inside me, beneath the grief and fear, an old part of myself woke up. The part that had filed legal documents for 26 years. The part that knew paper could lie. But official records did not forget. The first thing Ethan tried to take from me was not the house. It was my bedroom. That may sound small compared to what happened later, but I have learned that people do not usually begin betrayal with a thunderclap. They begin with a suggestion, a favor, a sentence that sounds reasonable if you do not listen closely enough. It happened on a Saturday morning in late spring. I was watering the African violets on the kitchen windowsill when Ethan and Amanda arrived without calling first. They came in carrying coffee cups from a cafe I had never liked because everything there tasted too sweet and cost too much. Amanda kissed the air beside my cheek, not my cheek itself, and Ethan gave me a quick hug while looking over my shoulder toward the hallway. "Mom," he said, "we've been thinking." That phrase had become a warning bell in my house. I set the watering can in the sink. About what Amanda smiled as if she had prepared for this. "Your comfort." "My comfort?" "Yes," Ethan said. "The main bedroom is upstairs. The stairs aren't getting easier for you. I use those stairs every day." "That doesn't mean you should." Amanda placed her coffee on my counter without a coaster. "The den downstairs could be turned into a lovely bedroom for you. Cozy, convenient, safer." The den was the smallest room in the house, tucked behind the dining room with one narrow window facing the side fence. William used to sit there on winter evenings reading manuals and repair guides he never truly needed because he already knew how to fix everything. After he died, I left the room mostly untouched. His reading lamp was still there. His old chair still held the slight dip his body had made over the years. "You want me to move into William's den?" I asked. Ethan sighed. "Mom, don't make it emotional." That was another phrase people use when they want you to stop noticing something painful. Amanda stepped in smoothly. It's not about taking anything from you. It's about making the house function better for everyone. For everyone. I repeated. A quick look passed between them. Ethan cleared his throat. Amanda and I could use the upstairs room when we stay over. It has the attached bathroom, more closet space. It just makes sense. There it was. Wrapped in safety. Delivered as concern. But underneath it was appetite. I did not shout. I did not accuse. I simply said, no. Amanda's men smile thinned. Ethan stared at me as if I had embarrassed him. Mom, we're trying to help. No, I said again. You're trying to move me out of my own bedroom. The kitchen went quiet. Amanda picked up her coffee. Well, that's an unfair way to look at it. It may be unfair, I said, but it is accurate. They left 20 minutes later, stiff and offended, as though I had wounded them by refusing to give up the room where I had slept beside my husband for 41 years. After that, Amanda began making changes without asking. At first, they were small enough to question myself over. A vase moved from the entry table to the closet. A quilt folded away because, according to her, it made the living room look dated. A stack of Williams woodworking magazines disappeared from the coffee table. When I asked about them, Amanda said, "Oh, I put those in the garage." They were cluttering the space. The space. Not my home, not my living room. The space. One afternoon, I came home from the grocery store and found her standing on a chair in the hallway, taking down the framed photograph of William from our 25th anniversary. "What are you doing?" I asked. She nearly dropped the frame, then laughed too loudly. "Carolyn, you scared me. Why is that picture off the wall?" She glanced toward the photo. William was wearing a gray suit in it, one arm around me, smiling like he had just heard a private joke. I loved that picture because it showed him before the illness took weight from his face. Amanda said, "I was just rearranging. This hallway has too many old photos. It feels heavy." Heavy. You know what I mean. Sad, like a memorial. "It is my hallway," I said. "And that is my husband." Her lips pressed together. Of course. I took the frame from her hands and hung it back myself. My fingers shook so badly, the picture tilted twice before I got it straight. That evening, Ethan called. Amanda said you snapped at her. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. Amanda was removing your father's picture from the wall. She was trying to freshen things up. "Your father is not clutter, Ethan." He exhaled heavily the way William used to when a fuse box was wired wrong. But unlike William, Ethan's frustration held no patience. "Mom, nobody said Dad was clutter." He exhaled heavily the way William used to when a fuse box was wired wrong. But unlike William, Ethan's frustration held no patience. "Mom, nobody said Dad was clutter." She said the hallway felt like a memorial. Well, maybe it does. I closed my eyes. That sentence hurt more than I wanted it to. Not because he was wrong that grief lived in my house, but because he spoke as if grief were an inconvenience he had grown tired of seeing. Around the same time, Melissa began stopping by more often. She brought soup magazines, soft cardigans I did not need, and concern that felt like a blanket placed gently over my mouth. "Mom," she said one Tuesday afternoon, sitting across from me at the dining table, "you've been getting a lot of mail." "Most adults do." She smiled. "I mean, official-looking mail." "What kind of official-looking mail?" "Oh, tax things, county things, insurance things. You know how confusing all that can be." I looked at her hands. She had always had elegant hands, thin fingers, pale polish, no sign of hard work. That day, one of those hands rested on top of a stack of envelopes near my placemat. "Melissa," I said, "did you open my mail?" She pulled back, as if I had slapped her. I was checking whether anything needed attention. That is not what I asked. Her eyes shone instantly. Melissa could summon tears the way some people summon a waiter. I cannot believe you would speak to me like I'm stealing from you. I asked if you opened my mail. I'm your daughter. That is also not an answer. She stood up hurt and righteous. Fine, handle everything yourself, but don't come crying to us when something gets missed. After she left, I checked the envelopes. One from the insurance company had been opened carefully along the top. Another from the county auditor had a corner torn, as if someone had tried to reseal it too quickly. A third envelope from my bank was missing entirely, though I remembered seeing it in the stack that morning. I stood there in my own dining room, listening to the clock tick above the china cabinet, and felt something colder than fear. I felt watched. That night, I began my notebook. It was a small, blue spiral notebook I found in William's desk drawer, the kind he used to keep measurements in. The first page still had his handwriting at the top back porch railing sand before painting. I ran my finger over the words and almost closed the notebook because the sight of his handwriting made grief rise in my throat. But then I turned to a clean page. May 12th. Ethan and Amanda suggested moving me from main bedroom to den. I refused. Amanda later removed William's anniversary photo from hallway. May 16th. Melissa handled mail without permission. County auditor envelope opened. Bank envelope missing. May 19th. Amanda moved William's magazines to garage without asking. The act of writing steadied me. It turned confusion into evidence. It gave shape to the fog they were trying to place around me. Over the next few weeks, I wrote everything down. Ethan asked where I kept my homeowner's insurance policy. Melissa wanted a copy of my Medicare card because, as she said, "What if there's an emergency?" Amanda asked whether my name was the only name on the property tax bill. Ethan offered to simplify my online banking. Melissa told Emily right in front of me, "Grandma gets overwhelmed easily now." That one stung. Emily looked at me quickly, her face uncomfortable. She was 22, old enough to understand cruelty, but young enough to fear challenging her mother. I gave her a small smile, not because I was fine, but because I did not want her carrying the whole truth before she was ready. The missing papers bothered me most. A property tax receipt vanished from the drawer beside the refrigerator. Then a folder labeled Home Insurance Current was no longer in the file cabinet. When I asked Ethan whether he had moved it, he gave me the same tired look. "Mom, you probably put it somewhere else. I have kept that folder in the same place for 9 years. People misplace things. Not always." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You've been under stress. Dad's death changed things. None of us expect you to be perfect." It sounded compassionate. It was not. He was laying the groundwork. One soft accusation at a time. One missing document at a time. One small doubt at a time. So I began taking pictures. Every document I still had, I photographed with my phone. Deed copies, tax bills, insurance declarations, William's death certificate, mortgage payoff letter, utility statements in my name. I emailed them to myself, then saved them in a folder Ethan did not know existed. I also placed paper copies in an old recipe tin labeled Christmas cookies because no one in my family had cooked from scratch in years, and I knew they would never look there. I hated doing it. A mother should not have to hide evidence from her own children. But every time guilt softened me, Amanda would say something careless enough to remind me. One evening, while Ethan fixed himself a drink in my kitchen, as if it were already his, Amanda walked through the living room pointing at walls. "This one could come down," she said. "Open concept sells better." I was sitting in William's recliner. "Sells, I asked." She froze. Ethan turned slowly from the counter. Amanda recovered fast. "I mean eventually, Not now. Eventually when... She laughed. Carolyn, you take everything so seriously. No, I said quietly. I think I finally started taking things seriously enough. No one answered. That silence told me more than any confession could have. Later that night, after they left, I locked the front door and leaned my forehead against it. My house felt tired, not empty as it had after William died, but invaded, as if every room were holding its breath. I went upstairs to my bedroom, opened the closet, and took down William's metal box again. The sealed envelope with my name remained inside untouched. I wanted to open it. I feared opening it, because some part of me already knew that William had seen something in our children before I was willing to see it myself. I sat on the bed with the box beside me and listened to the quiet. Then I picked up my blue notebook and added one more line. June 3rd. Amanda mentioned selling before anyone had discussed selling. I underlined it twice. By then, I no longer believed I was imagining things. My children were not worried about me living alone. They were worried I would keep living in a house they had already begun calling theirs. The documents arrived on a rainy Thursday evening, tucked inside a cream-colored folder Amanda carried against her chest, like she was bringing me a gift. I had just finished washing the dinner dishes. The windows above the sink were fogged at the edges, and the backyard looked blurry through the rain, like an old photograph left too long in water. I remember that because grief and fear have a way of preserving useless details. I cannot remember what sweater I wore that night, but I remember the exact sound of Amanda's heels clicking across my kitchen floor. Ethan came in behind her, followed by Melissa, who was holding a bakery box. I brought lemon bars, Melissa said brightly. That was when I knew something was wrong. Melissa only brought dessert when she wanted a conversation to feel softer than it was. Amanda placed the folder on my kitchen table. Ethan pulled out a chair for me as though I were a guest at a meeting instead of the owner of the house. No one took off their coats. No one asked how I was feeling. Their faces carried that strange tightness people have when they have already rehearsed what they are going to say. What is this? I asked. Ethan sat across from me. Just some papers. Papers for what? For peace of mind, Melissa said quickly. Nothing scary, Amanda smiled. It's a simple family arrangement, Carolyn. Very common. There was that word again. Simple. In my years at the law office, I learned that whenever someone called a legal document simple before you read it, it usually meant they hoped you would not read it at all. I dried my hands slowly on a towel and sat down. Then you won't mind if I look through it? Ethan's expression flickered. Just a tiny movement around the mouth. But I saw it. Of course not, he said. We want you to understand. Amanda opened the folder and slid the first document toward me. This would allow Ethan to help manage things if you become unable to. If I repeated. Yes, Melissa said, just in case. The first page was titled in bold letters, Durable Power of Attorney. I did not react. I simply turned the page. I could feel all three of them watching me. Amanda stood too close to my shoulder, the scent of her perfume settling over the table. Ethan tapped one finger against his knee. Melissa kept glancing at the bakery box as if sugar could rescue her from what she was helping to do. The document named Ethan as my agent. That alone was not shocking. Many parents appoint adult children to help in emergencies, but the powers listed beneath his name were broad. Too broad. Banking, investments, real estate, personal property, access to safe deposit boxes, authority to sell, transfer, lease, or encumber assets. I turned another page, then another. My hands stayed steady, but something inside me was beginning to harden. Who prepared these? I asked. A service? Amanda answered too fast. Online legal forms, Perfectly valid. You used an online form for my property rights. Ethan leaned forward. Mom, don't say it like that. It's not some conspiracy. I asked who prepared them. Amanda folded her arms. We didn't need to hire an expensive attorney for basic paperwork. I looked back down. The next document was labeled Family Property Management Agreement. That title would have sounded harmless to someone who had never spent years filing documents for attorneys, but I had. I knew harmless titles could hide sharp teeth. The agreement stated that Ethan would have authority to coordinate, manage, and make necessary decisions regarding the residence located at, followed by my address. My address. My home. The home William and I paid for with aching backs and skipped vacations. I read every word. Melissa shifted in her chair. Mom, you don't have to study it like a court case. Yes, I said. I do. Her cheeks flushed. The more I read, the worse it became. The agreement allowed Ethan to make decisions about repairs, renovations, occupancy, and potential sale if he deemed such action beneficial to the family estate. There was no definition of family estate, no protection for my right to remain in the home, no requirement that I approve major decisions in writing, no mention of William's wishes, no independent witness, no attorney certification, nothing. I turned to the signature page. There were sticky notes already placed where I was supposed to sign. Bright yellow arrows. Sign here. Initial here. Date here. It felt like looking at a trap with a ribbon tied around it. I looked up at my son. Did you read this? He hesitated. Amanda and I went over it. That is not what I asked. Yes, he said, irritated now. I read it. Then you know what it does. It protects you. No, I said. It protects your access to what belongs to me. The room changed. Amanda's pleasant expression disappeared first. Melissa lowered her eyes. Ethan's face went still the way William's used to. Whoa, and a storm was about to break, except William's storms were rare and honest. Ethan's was full of resentment. Mom, he said slowly, you're being dramatic. I am being literate. In a storm was about to break, except William's storms were rare and honest. Ethan's was full of resentment. Mom, he said slowly, you're being dramatic. I am being literate. Amanda gave a short laugh. Carolyn, nobody is taking your house. I slid the agreement back across the table. This says otherwise. It says Ethan can help manage it. Melissa insisted. Managing is choosing a plumber when the sink breaks. This gives him authority over occupancy and sale. Melissa blinked clearly, not expecting me to quote the language back to her. Ethan's voice lowered. You are 69 years old. You live alone. You forget things. You misplace papers. You get confused by bills. I stared at him. There it was again. The story they were trying to write about me. Not suddenly, not loudly. Slowly, patiently, line by line. I have not missed a bill, I said. That's not the point. I have not missed a tax payment. You're not listening. I have not forgotten who owns this house. Amanda's eyes sharpened. Ethan pushed his chair back. Why do you always have to make everything a fight? Because you keep asking me to surrender things and calling it help. Melissa stood, tears already forming. This is exactly why we're worried. You're suspicious of everyone. No, Melissa. I am suspicious of suspicious behavior. She looked wounded, but not surprised. That told me enough. Amanda picked up one of the papers and tapped it with her manicured nail. Carolyn, be realistic. Houses need decisions. Families need plans. Ethan is the oldest. It makes sense. To whom? To everyone, she said. Not to me. Ethan's face reddened. You think Dad would want you sitting here alone clinging to a house you can barely manage? That struck the air like a thrown glass. For a moment, I could not speak. Not because I doubted William, because Ethan had used him. He had reached into the grave for his father's voice and tried to twist it into permission. I stood up. Do not use your father to pressure me. Ethan looked away, but only for a second. Dad believed in family. Your father believed in respect. The rain tapped harder against the kitchen windows. I noticed the lemon bars still sitting unopened on the counter, neat and pretty and useless. That small detail made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. Melissa softened her voice. Mom, nobody wants to hurt you. But you're making this harder than it needs to be. I turned to her. Harder for whom? She did not answer. Amanda exhaled sharply. You know, a lot of mothers would be grateful to have children willing to step in, and a lot of children would be ashamed to ask their mother to sign away control of her home at her own kitchen table. Silence. Then Ethan said the sentence I never forgot. Mom, don't make this harder than it has to be. He said it quietly, but the threat underneath it filled the room. I looked at the boy I had carried through fevers, the young man whose college application I had typed twice because he spilled soda on the first copy, the son whose first car William helped repair in this very driveway. I searched his face for embarrassment, for regret, for the smallest sign that he hurt himself. I found none, only impatience. That was when something inside me finally shifted from sorrow to warning. I picked up the documents, stacked them carefully, and placed them back in the cream-colored folder. I am not signing these. Melissa began to cry for real then, or at least loudly enough to sound real. You don't trust us. No, I said. I don't trust these papers. Amanda snatched the folder before I could push it farther away. Fine. Well, revisit this when you're calmer. I am calm. Ethan stood. You're making a mistake. Then it is my mistake to make. He stepped closer to me, and for one awful second, I saw not my child, but a man measuring an obstacle. This house is too much for you, he said. I met his eyes. This house is mine. He stepped closer to me, and for one awful second, I saw not my child, but a man measuring an obstacle. This house is too much for you, he said. I met his eyes. This house is mine. Amanda laughed under her breath. For now. The words were small, almost whispered, but I heard them. Ethan shot her a look. Melissa froze. Amanda's mouth tightened, as if she wished she could pull the words back before they reached me. Too late, for now. I did not respond. Not then. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the place where a decision grows roots. They left without touching the lemon bars. After the door closed, I stood in the kitchen for a long time. The house felt different again, not invaded this time, threatened. I walked to the drawer beside the refrigerator and took out my blue notebook. My hand trembled as I wrote. June 12th. Ethan, Melissa, and Amanda brought legal papers. Durable power of attorney and property management agreement. Attempted to pressure me to sign. I refused. Amanda said, for now. I underlined those last two words so hard the pen tore the paper. Then I went upstairs, opened William's metal box, and finally touched the sealed envelope again. Carolyn. His handwriting looked steadier than I felt. I did not open it yet, but I held it against my chest and whispered, I think you knew, didn't you? The rain kept falling. And downstairs, on my kitchen table, where they had tried to corner me, one yellow sticky note remained stuck to the wood. Sign here. I peeled it off, folded it in half, and placed it inside my notebook. Because if my own children were building a case against me, then I would build one too. Only mine would be made of truth. After I refused to sign the papers, they stopped pretending kindness came naturally. It did not happen all at once. That was what made it so painful. If Ethan had shouted at me every day, if Melissa had slammed doors, if Amanda had openly called me a burden, perhaps I could have defended myself sooner. But cruelty in families often wears house slippers. It moves quietly from room to room, changing the temperature before you realize you are freezing. The first change was money. Not my money exactly. I still had my own Social Security Williams pension and a modest savings account. But Ethan had started paying for certain things after William died, insisting it made him feel useful. He covered the grocery delivery some weeks paid for lawn care when my knees bothered me, and once in a while, he sent over household supplies. I had never asked him to do it, but he made it sound like love, so I let him. After the night of the documents that help turned into a weapon, the grocery delivery stopped without warning. When I called him, he sounded busy and cold. "Mom, you said you can handle everything yourself." I said I would not sign those papers. Same difference. It is not the same difference, Ethan. He sighed. I'm at work. I can't argue about groceries. The next week, the lawn service did not come. By Friday, the grass looked uneven, and the weeds along the fence were tall enough that Amanda noticed the moment she arrived. "This yard is embarrassing," she said from the porch, holding her phone like she might take a picture and use it against me later. "I'll call someone," I said. "With what money?" "This yard is embarrassing," she said from the porch, holding her phone like she might take a picture and use it against me later. "I'll call someone," I said. "With what money?" she asked. I looked at her. "Mine." She smiled slightly. Of course. That little smile stayed with me longer than the words. Melissa chose a different punishment. She canceled things that made me feel human. My hair appointment disappeared from the salon calendar. I found out only after putting on my blue blouse, driving 20 minutes, and walking inside with my purse tucked under my arm. The young receptionist looked uncomfortable as she checked the computer. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Grant. It says the appointment was canceled yesterday." "Canceled by whom?" She hesitated. "Your daughter called." I stood there in front of women with foil in their hair and dryers humming over their heads, feeling foolish in a way I had not felt since I was a young girl. I drove home with my hair untouched and my pride bruised. When I called Melissa, she answered as if she had expected me. "Mom, I canceled because you've been spending too much lately. My hair appointment is every 6 weeks. You're on a fixed income. I paid for it myself. You have to start being more careful." I am careful. Her voice softened into that dangerous tenderness again. "You think you are." I hung up before I said something I could not take back. Amanda began speaking around me instead of to me. On Sundays, Ethan and Amanda sometimes came for dinner, though I no longer knew why. They did not come to visit me. They came to inspect. Amanda walked through rooms making comments under her breath. The wallpaper in the guest room was ancient. The dining room table was too dark. The kitchen cabinets were wasted potential. She opened my pantry and said, "This is what happens when older people live alone. They stockpile." I was standing right there. "I can hear you," I said. She turned eyes wide with fake innocence. "Oh, Carolyn, I didn't mean anything." "Yes, you did." Ethan snapped, "Mom, don't start." Those 3 words became his way of silencing me. Don't start. As if my pain were a fight I had invented. One evening I came downstairs for a glass of water and stopped halfway when I heard voices in the kitchen. Ethan and Amanda had stayed late after dinner. I thought they had left, but their voices drifted into the hallway low and sharp. "She's being impossible," Amanda said. "She's stubborn," Ethan replied. "She's selfish. That house is wasted on her. 2 people could barely use all that space, and now it's just one old woman sitting in rooms full of dead memories." I gripped the banister so hard my fingers hurt. Ethan did not defend me. He did not say, "That old woman is my mother." He did not say, "Those dead memories are my father." He only said, "I know." Something broke very quietly inside me then. I went back upstairs without getting water. The next family dinner was worse. Melissa arrived with Emily, and for a moment I was relieved. Emily kissed my cheek and asked if I needed help setting the table. Her kindness was small, but it felt like sunlight through a cracked curtain. I squeezed her hand and said, "Thank you, sweetheart." Dinner began stiffly. Ethan barely spoke. Amanda picked at her food. Melissa kept watching me as if waiting for me to spill something or forget someone's name. Halfway through the meal, she placed her fork down. "Mom," she said, "we need to talk about long-term care." The room went silent. I looked at her. "Long-term care for whom?" She blinked. "For you. I am sitting here serving roast chicken in my own dining room. That doesn't mean you're safe alone?" Ethan leaned back. "Assisted living isn't what it used to be. Some places are very nice," Amanda added. "Almost like resorts." I laughed once. I could not help it. "Resorts." Melissa's mouth tightened. "This attitude is exactly why it's hard to talk to you." Emily looked down at her plate. I turned to my granddaughter. "Emily, did you know they were going to bring this up tonight?" Her eyes flicked toward her mother. "No." Melissa gave her a warning look. I set my napkin beside my plate. "I am not moving into assisted living." Ethan said, "You may not have a choice forever." The words chilled me. "Is that a concern?" I asked. "Or a plan?" No one answered. After dinner, Emily helped me carry plates into the kitchen. Her hands shook slightly as she rinsed them. "Grandma," she whispered, "I'm sorry. For what I don't know. Just all of this." I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to show her the notebook, the missing papers, the yellow sticky note, the way her mother's concern felt like a net tightening around me. But she was still Melissa's daughter. I would not pull her into a war before I understood how dangerous it might become, so I only touched her shoulder. "Keep your eyes open, sweetheart." She looked at me, then really looked at me, and nodded. That night, after everyone left, the silence of the house felt different. Before silence had been William's absence. Now it was my family's judgment lingering in the walls. I went to the living room and stood before the mantel. William's photograph looked back at me steady and kind. I remembered the way he used to say my name when he knew I was worried. Carolyn. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to remind me I was not alone. I climbed the stairs slowly, my knees aching, and went to the closet. The metal box waited on the top shelf, heavier than memory should be. I carried it to the bed and sat beside it for a long time before opening the lid. This time, I did not stop at the sealed envelope. I opened it. Inside was a single handwritten note folded around a small stack of papers. "My dearest Carolyn, if you are reading this, then either I am gone or I am too weak to say these things myself. I hope I am wrong. I hope our children honor you the way you deserve. But if they ever pressure you about the house, if they ever make you feel confused about what belongs to you, go to the county recorder's office. Do not rely on copies they bring you. Do not rely on promises. Ask for the official record." I covered my mouth. The room blurred. William had known. Not everything, perhaps. Not the exact shape of the betrayal. Not the night they would bring papers to the kitchen table, or the way Amanda would call my life-wasted space. But he had seen enough to fear what I had refused to see. Beneath the note were old property tax receipts, a copy of our deed, the mortgage payoff letter, and a business card from someone named Linda Brooks at the county recorder's office. On the back of the card, William had written, "She knows the file." I sat on the edge of the bed with the papers spread across my quilt, crying in a way I had not cried since his funeral. But these tears were different. They were not only grief, they were recognition. My husband had left me more than memories. He had left me a path, a warning, a way back to the truth if the people we loved tried to bury it. I picked up my blue notebook and wrote one more entry. June 24th. Found William's note. He warned me to go to county recorder if pressured about the house. Then I placed his note, the business card, and the old deed copy into a large envelope. I sealed it and wrote across the front in black ink, official records. For the first time in weeks, I slept with the bedroom door locked. Not because I feared strangers, because I was finally willing to admit the danger had my children's last name. The morning they changed the locks began almost peacefully. That is the detail that still unsettles me when I think back on it. Nothing in the sunrise warned me. Nothing in the quiet clink of my coffee cup against the saucer whispered that by afternoon, I would be standing on my own front porch like a stranger with nowhere to go. I had a doctor's appointment that morning on the north side of Columbus. Just a routine checkup. Blood pressure, cholesterol. The usual questions people ask when you become a certain age, as if every answer might prove you are becoming less capable of living your own life. Before I left, I walked through the house the way I always did. I checked the stove. I watered the African violets. I looked at William's photograph on the mantel and said, "I'll be back soon," like I had done every time I left the house since he died. Maybe that sounds foolish, but when you have loved someone for more than 40 years, silence becomes a language of its own. The envelope marked official records was in my purse. I had placed it there the night before, not because I expected anything dramatic, but because William's note had changed something in me. I no longer trusted the house to protect the documents. I no longer trusted my family to respect closed drawers or locked doors. My appointment lasted less than an hour. The nurse was kind. The doctor told me my blood pressure was slightly high, but understandable for a woman under stress. I almost laughed, if only he knew. On the drive home, rain clouds gathered over the highway, though no rain had started yet. I remember turning onto my street and seeing the 2 maple trees in front of the house moving lightly in the wind. For one small moment, relief passed through me. No matter how tense things had become, the sight of that house still reached the deepest part of me. Home. Then I saw the cars. Ethan's SUV was in the driveway. Melissa's sedan was parked by the curb. Amanda's white crossover sat behind Ethan's vehicle, angled carelessly across part of the walkway William had built with his own hands. My stomach tightened. I had not invited them. I parked on the street because the driveway was full. I sat in the car for a few seconds, one hand still gripping the steering wheel. Through the front window, I saw movement inside, shadows passing behind curtains. People moving through rooms that had not invited them either. I got out slowly. My purse felt heavier than usual on my shoulder. The wind pushed at my cardigan as I walked up the brick path. I remember noticing mud on one of the bricks and thinking William would have cleaned it right away. That tiny thought almost broke me before anything had even happened. At the door, I took out my key. It did not fit. At first, my mind refused to understand. I pulled it back, checked the key ring, and tried again. The key entered halfway, then stopped against unfamiliar metal. I tried the deadbolt. Same thing. I stood very still. Inside, someone moved near the door. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again, harder. The curtain beside the door shifted. Ethan's face appeared behind the glass panel, then Melissa's over his shoulder. Amanda stood farther back in the foyer, arms crossed, looking not nervous, but satisfied. "Open the door," I said. Ethan did not move. "Ethan," I said louder, "open this door." He unlocked nothing. He only spoke through the glass. "Mom, you need to calm down." The words were so absurd I almost did not recognize them as language. I am standing outside my Odoian house because my key does not work. He unlocked nothing. He only spoke through the glass. Mom, you need to calm down. The words were so absurd I almost did not recognize them as language. I am standing outside my own house because my key does not work. Melissa stepped closer. Her eyes were red, but I could tell she had prepared them that way. Mom, please don't make a scene. A scene, I repeated. Amanda came forward then. She did not bother pretending sadness. Carolyn, this is not helping. I looked at the lock again. New, shiny, recently installed. You changed my locks. Ethan lifted his chin. We had to. You had to. For safety. That word again. Safety. The soft cloth wrapped around a blade. I looked past him into the foyer. My foyer. William's umbrella still stood in the ceramic stand by the stairs. My church coat hung on the hook. A vase of dried lavender sat on the entry table. Everything inside belonged to my life, and yet my children were standing between me and it like guards at a gate. Open the door, I said again. Ethan's face hardened. Mom, this isn't your home anymore. The sentence landed so heavily I felt the porch tilt beneath my feet. For a moment, I heard nothing. Not the wind, not the distant hum of traffic, not even my own breathing. Melissa reached for Ethan's arm. Maybe don't say it like that. For a moment, I heard nothing. Not the wind, not the distant hum of traffic, not even my own breathing. Melissa reached for Ethan's arm. Maybe don't say it like that. But it's true, Amanda said. My eyes moved to her. She walked away from the foyer and returned carrying a black trash bag. She opened the door just a few inches enough to push the bag onto the porch with her foot before closing it again quickly as if I were dangerous. The bag fell against my ankle. Through the thin plastic, I recognized the sleeve of my gray sweater, my nightgown, a pair of house slippers, clothes chosen without care shoved together like donations. Something hot rose into my throat. Not anger first, humiliation. Across the street, Mrs. Patterson had stepped onto her porch with her little terrier under one arm. 2 houses down, a man paused while unloading groceries from his trunk. People were watching. My neighbor's people, who had waved to me for years, were watching me stand outside my own house with my clothes in a garbage bag. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I straightened my shoulders. What exactly do you think you've done? I asked. Ethan's jaw worked. We've taken legal steps. Legal steps. Yes, you refused to cooperate, so we had to protect the property. The property, I said, quietly. Melissa spoke then, using her softest voice. Mom, you're not safe living alone. We all agreed. Did I agree? Her face crumpled. You've been confused. I almost smiled because the script was so obvious now. Confused, unsafe, difficult, emotional, dramatic. They had built a cage out of words and hoped everyone would mistake it for concern. Amanda leaned toward the glass. You signed enough for Ethan to act. No, I said. I did not. Ethan's eyes flashed. You don't remember everything you sign. There it was. The lie had finally stepped into daylight. I moved closer to the door. Are you claiming I signed my house over to you? He did not answer directly. You authorized changes, Amanda said. I authorized nothing. Ethan said, Mom, you need to stay somewhere else for a while. Melissa found a short-term place. We'll bring more of your things later. I looked at my daughter. You arranged somewhere for me to stay? Melissa wiped beneath one eye. Only temporarily, without asking me. It was for your own good. For my own good. I had cooked for them, worked for them, prayed for them, buried their father with them. And now they were using my age as a shovel to dig me out of my own life. My hand moved to my purse. Ethan noticed. "What are you doing?" I did not answer. I opened the clasp and touched the envelope inside. William's note, the old deed copy, the tax receipts, the business card with Linda Brooks's name on it. I did not pull it out yet. Not fully. Instead, I looked at Ethan through the glass and asked one question. "Did you actually record it?" The change in his face was small but unmistakable. His eyes shifted. Amanda turned her head sharply toward him. Melissa stopped crying. There was my answer. Ethan recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "You know what I'm talking about," Amanda said. "Carolyn, don't start using legal words to confuse everyone." I looked at her with a calm I did not know I still possessed. Recorded, filed, accepted by the county recorder, entered into the official property records. Pick whichever words make you comfortable. Behind the glass, Ethan's confidence cracked for 1 second. Just one, but I had worked in law offices long enough to know that 1 second could reveal an entire case. He looked away first. I nodded slowly. "You didn't, did you?" Melissa whispered. "Ethan," he snapped, "stay out of it." That was when Mrs. Patterson crossed halfway onto her lawn, pretending to adjust her dog's leash while listening to every word. Ethan saw her too. His face darkened. "Mom," he said through clenched teeth, "leave before this gets embarrassing." I looked down at the trash bag by my feet. Then at the new lock. Then at my children standing in the house William and I built, believing possession was the same as ownership. "Oh, Ethan," I said softly. "It already is." Amanda pointed toward the street. "Go to the motel." "Well, talk when you're reasonable." I picked up the trash bag. It was lighter than it should have been. They had not even packed enough clothes for dignity. Then I took the envelope from my purse and held it where they could see the county stamp on the old, certified copy. Nobody spoke. Not Ethan, not Melissa, not Amanda. For the first time all morning, the silence belonged to me. "I am going to leave now," I said. "Not because you have the right to make me, but because I will not beg through glass to enter a house that the official records already know is mine." Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came out. I turned and walked down the brick path with the trash bag in one hand and William's warning in the other. At the curb, I looked back once. Amanda was watching me with fear now, not guilt. Fear. And that told me she understood something Ethan had not. Changing locks was easy. Changing records was not. I drove away from my own house with a trash bag on the passenger seat and my hands shaking so badly I had to pull over 3 blocks later. The sky had finally opened. Rain struck the windshield in hard silver lines, blurring the street, until the whole world looked washed out and unfamiliar. I sat there with the engine running, staring at the bag of clothes Amanda had pushed onto the porch, and for the first time since William died, I felt truly homeless. Not because I had nowhere to sleep, because the people I had given my life to had decided I no longer belonged. I could have called the police right then. I could have marched back, knocked on a neighbor's door, made a scene large enough for the entire block to remember. But I also knew enough about family disputes and property claims to understand how messy things could become when emotions arrived before documents. Ethan wanted me emotional. Melissa wanted me confused. Amanda wanted me humiliated. So I forced myself to breathe. I drove to a small motel near the highway, the kind of place William and I used to pass on road trips. without ever imagining I would one day walk into it carrying my life in a trash bag. The sign outside flickered between vacancy and vacancy, missing one tired letter. The lobby smelled like old carpet lemon cleaner and coffee that had been sitting too long. The young man at the desk barely looked up. One night, he asked, I wanted to say, I don't know. I wanted to explain that my children had locked me out of the house my husband and I paid for. I wanted someone to gasp, to understand, to tell me this could not happen. Instead, I said, yes, one night. My room was on the second floor. The carpet in the hallway had a faded blue pattern worn thin in the center from years of strangers dragging suitcases over it. Inside the room, the bedspread was stiff, the lamp buzzed faintly, and the air conditioner rattled like it was arguing with itself. I set the trash bag on the floor. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and finally cried. I did not cry neatly. I did not dab at my eyes like a graceful widow in a church pew. I bent forward, pressed both hands over my mouth, and sobbed until my chest hurt. I cried for the house, yes, but more than that, I cried for the illusion I had lost. The illusion that motherhood protected you from betrayal. The illusion that children remembered sacrifices the same way mothers did. The illusion that love, given over decades, could not be rewritten by greed in a matter of months. I remembered Ethan as a boy with scraped knees running through the backyard calling, Mom, watch this, before doing something that usually ended in a bruise. I remembered Melissa falling asleep against my shoulder during thunderstorms, her little fingers curled in my blouse. I remembered both of them standing beside William's casket, weeping as if grief had made us one family again. And now those same children had stood behind glass, while my clothes lay at my feet in a garbage bag. After a while, my tears slowed, not because the pain was gone, but because my body became tired of carrying it. I washed my face in the small bathroom sink. The fluorescent light showed every line in my face, every mark of age they had tried to use against me. I looked at myself for a long time. 69 years old, widowed, locked out, but not helpless. I returned to the bed and opened my purse. The envelope marked official records was still there, dry and safe. I took it out with both hands as carefully as if it were something living. Inside were William's note, the deed copy, the tax receipts, the mortgage payoff letter, and Linda Brooks's business card. Linda Brooks. I remembered her name now. Years ago, when I worked at the law office, she had helped us track down a recording error for an elderly client whose nephew tried to sell land that did not belong to him. Linda had been sharp patient and unafraid of difficult people. William must have met her later when he updated our records. Or perhaps he had kept her card from a conversation he never told me about. On the back of the card, his handwriting waited for me. She knows the file. I touched the words and felt the ache of him. What did you see, William? I whispered. The motel room gave no answer. I spread the papers across the bed. The deed copy listed William and me as owners. The mortgage payoff letter carried both our names. The tax receipts showed payments made year after year. I arranged everything in order the way I used to organize case files at the law office. Dates first, names second, stamps, signatures, references. Paper did not comfort me, but order did. Then I opened my blue notebook. I read back through the entries, Ethan asking about the deed. Melissa opening mail. Amanda mentioning selling. The legal papers. The phrase, for now. William's note. The changed locks. When I saw it all together, the story became undeniable. This was not concern. This was a campaign. My phone buzzed on the nightstand and made me jump. Ethan. I let it ring. A voicemail appeared, then a text. Mom, stop acting like we threw you into the street. You have somewhere to stay. We'll talk when you calm down. A second message followed. Don't call anyone and make this worse. That sentence decided me. I picked up Linda Brooks's card and dialed the number, half expecting it to be disconnected. It had been years. People retired. Numbers changed. Life moved on without asking permission. The phone rang 4 times. Then a woman's voice answered, cautious and clear. This is Linda. I swallowed. Linda Brooks. Yes, my name is Carolyn Grant. I don't know if you remember me. My husband was William Grant. He left me your card. There was a pause. Then her voice changed. Carolyn Grant from the house on Maple Ridge Lane. My breath caught. Yes. Oh, honey, she said softly. I remember that file. Those words nearly undid me. I pressed my fingers to my eyes. My children changed the locks today. They say they took legal steps. They say the house isn't mine anymore. Linda did not gasp. She did not offer empty comfort. She became quiet in the way competent people do when they understand danger. Did you sign anything transferring ownership? No. Did you sign a power of attorney? No. Did you sign a deed of any kind? No. Did anyone notarize anything in front of you? No. Another pause. Good, she said. Do you have papers with you? Yes. William's note, a deed copy, tax receipts, mortgage payoff letter. Bring all of it. When? First thing in the morning. My hand tightened around the phone. Linda, do you still work at the county recorder's office? I retired 2 years ago, she said. But I know exactly who to call, and I know how to search what matters. We'll start with the recorded deed history. Then we'll see whether anything was filed rejected or attempted. Attempted, I asked. Honey, people try things. Official records show more than what succeeded. Sometimes they show what failed. The rooms seem to still around me. What if they filed something false? Then we find it. What if they're inside my house tonight? Then tomorrow we prove whether they have any right to be. I closed my eyes, and for the first time that day, I felt the ground beneath me. Linda's voice softened. Carolyn, listen to me. A locked door is not the same as a legal right. Don't argue with them tonight. Don't threaten. Don't explain. Save every message. Keep your documents close. Meet me tomorrow at 9. I nodded before realizing she could not see me. Yes. And Carolyn, too. Yes, if William told you to come to the records office, he had a reason. After we hung up, I sat in silence with the phone in my lap. Outside, rain continued to fall. Cars hissed along the highway beyond the motel window. Somewhere down the hall, a television laughed through thin walls. The world kept going indifferent to an old woman with a trash bag of clothes and a family that had mistaken cruelty for power. But I no longer felt quite as alone. I placed Ethan's texts into a folder on my phone and took screenshots. Then, I photographed the trash bag, the clothes inside the motel receipt, and the envelope of documents spread across the bed. Evidence. It was a cold word, but that night, it became a kind of shelter. Before sleeping, I unfolded William's note one more time. Ask for the official record. I pressed the paper to my heart. They locked me out. I whispered into the dim motel room. But tomorrow, William were going to see what the records say. Then I turned off the lamp. For the first time since that morning, I was not just a mother who had been betrayed. I was a woman preparing to answer betrayal with proof. I did not sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan behind the glass. I heard Melissa saying, "Everything is legal." I saw Amanda's foot pushing that trash bag across my porch, as if I were something that had expired and needed to be removed. By 6 in the morning, I had already showered, dressed, and repacked my papers 3 times. I wore my navy coat, the one William always said made me look like I was going somewhere important. The motel mirror was cloudy around the edges and the lighting was cruel, but I stood in front of it and buttoned that coat slowly. I did not look like a woman who had spent the night crying in a cheap room beside the highway. At least I hoped I did not. I looked like someone prepared to be believed. At 8:30, I checked out. The young man at the desk handed me a receipt without looking up from his phone. I slipped it into my envelope. Proof of where I had slept after being locked out. Proof of a night I wished had never happened. The county recorder's office was downtown inside a gray stone government building with metal detectors at the entrance, and tired people moving through the halls with folders tucked under their arms. I had not been there in years, but the smell brought back memories. Immediately, paper toner, old floors, and the faint metallic scent of public buildings where everyone comes needing something official. Linda Brooks waited near the lobby benches. She was older than I remembered, her silver hair cut short, her glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. But her posture was straight, and her eyes were the same sharp kind, impossible to fool. The moment she saw me, her face softened. Carolyn. That one word nearly undid the careful strength I had buttoned into my coat. I walked toward her, holding the envelope against my chest. "Thank you for coming." She reached for my hand. "You shouldn't have had to." I did not know what to say to that, so I only nodded. Linda looked at the envelope. "You brought everything I could carry." "Good. Let's go upstairs." Although she was retired, Linda clearly still knew everyone. The security guard smiled at her. A clerk at the elevator said, "Morning, Ms. Brooks." Linda greeted them all politely, but kept moving purposeful, as a woman who had spent decades helping truth survive bureaucracy. The records room was quieter than I expected. Computers lined one wall. A few public terminals sat near the center. Behind the counter, staff moved between shelves, printers and filing stations. Linda led me to a terminal and set her purse down. First, she said we confirm the chain of title. I sat beside her, fingers clenched around my purse strap. She typed my address into the search system. Maple Ridge Lane appeared on the screen, followed by parcel information, document numbers recording dates and names. There it was. Grant, William H. Grant, Carolyn M. My breath caught at the sight of his name. Linda glanced at me gently. "You okay?" "Yes," I whispered. "Keep going." She opened the deed history. The original purchase appeared first recorded more than 40 years ago. Then a refinancing document from long before the mortgage was paid. Then the mortgage satisfaction letter. Then an affidavit related to William's death and survivorship rights. Linda leaned closer to the screen. "There," she said. She pointed to the record that mattered. After William died, the property showed Carolyn M. Grant as surviving owner. My name, not Ethan's, not Melissa's, not Amanda's, mine. For a few seconds, I could not breathe properly. The relief was so sharp it hurt. "They told me it wasn't my house anymore," I said. Linda's mouth tightened. People say many things when they hope no one checks. She clicked through several more entries. There is no recorded transfer from you to Ethan, no valid deed conveying ownership, no recorded power of attorney attached to property documents, nothing showing he has authority over the real estate. I closed my eyes. The house was still mine. Not because I wished it, not because I remembered it, because the record said so. But Linda did not look finished. She frowned slightly and typed something into another search field. "What is it?" I asked. "I want to search rejected submissions. Rejected documents that were presented but not accepted for recording. Not all offices track them the same way, but this county scans certain rejection notices." My hands grew cold. Linda searched my name again, then Ethan's. At first, nothing appeared. Then she changed the date range to the past 3 months. A line appeared. Rejected instrument notice. My stomach dropped. Linda became very still. Carolyn, she said carefully, someone attempted to submit a quitclaim deed. The words moved through me slowly like ice water. A quitclaim deed. Yes. To transfer the house, to transfer your interest, it appears. From me to Ethan. Linda opened the file. A scanned notice appeared, not the deed itself at first, but the rejection summary. She adjusted her glasses and read silently. Her face hardened with each line. Reason for rejection, she said. Signature discrepancy. Missing proper notarial acknowledgement. Incomplete legal description. Grantee information inconsistent. I gripped the edge of the desk. Someone tried to file it. Yes, and the county rejected it. Yes, my voice sounded far away. Was my signature on it? Linda clicked another attachment. The scanned image appeared. It was not fully processed because it had been rejected, but there was enough to see the page, the names, the blank spaces, the notary section with errors, and near the bottom a signature that was supposed to be mine. Carolyn M. Grant. Except it was not mine. I knew my own hand. I knew the slope of my letters, the way my C opened wide, the way my G curved lower, because years of typing had made my handwriting uneven but familiar. The signature on that paper looked like someone had studied my name and copied confidence without understanding rhythm. A stranger's version of me had tried to give away my home. I covered my mouth. Linda's voice softened. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen. My son did this. We don't know who physically signed it yet, but his name is there. She pointed to the grantee section. Ethan R. Grant. The room tilted. All my life, I had believed there were lines children would not cross. They might disappoint you. They might be selfish. They might forget to call. But forging your mother's name to take her home felt like something that belonged in a courtroom drama, not in the quiet life of a widow from Ohio. Linda reached into her purse and handed me a tissue. I had not realized I was crying. I kept hoping there was some misunderstanding, I said. I know. I kept thinking maybe Amanda pushed him. Maybe Melissa didn't understand. Maybe Ethan was scared. Linda let me speak. But this, I whispered, pointing to the screen. This was a plan. Linda nodded once. Yes, it was. That single word did more than comfort would have. It confirmed the truth. She stood and walked to the counter. I watched her speak to a clerk named Janice, who came back with her and logged into another system. Linda explained that I was the property owner and needed certified copies of the current recorded deed history survivorship record mortgage satisfaction and the rejection notice associated with the attempted quitclaim deed. Janice looked at me over her glasses. Do you have identification? I handed her my driver's license with fingers that had steadied again. She checked it carefully. Mrs. Grant, the current ownership record still shows you as the sole owner. Hearing it from an employee behind the counter made something in my chest loosen. Thank you, I said. Janice nodded. We can print certified copies. There will be a fee. You'll pay it. As the printer started, Linda sat beside me again. You need an attorney, she said. I know. Not later. Today. I nodded. And you need to save every text voicemail photo and receipt. The motel receipt, the trash bag, the changed locks, everything. I have been saving them. A faint smile touched her face. William chose well. That broke through the heaviness for one brief moment. I looked down at my hands. He knew I would need help. He knew you would need proof, Linda said. There's a difference. Janice returned with the stack of papers stamped and sealed. certified copies. Each page carried the weight of official truth. Not family opinion, not emotional manipulation, not threats through a locked door. The truth, printed in ink. I held them against my chest. For the first time since Ethan changed the locks, I did not feel outside the house. I felt the house coming back to me, page by page. Before we left, Linda asked Janice to provide a printed summary of where to request additional documentation if needed. Janice also gave me the name of the office supervisor in case my attorney wanted to follow up about the rejected deed. Rejected deed. The words still hurt, but they also saved me. On the way out of the building, Linda walked beside me slowly. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. I looked through the glass doors at the gray morning beyond them. Cars moved along the street. People hurried with umbrellas. The world looked ordinary again, though nothing in me felt ordinary. "I'm going to call a lawyer." "Good." And then I said, tightening my grip on the certified copies, "I'm going home." Linda stopped walking and looked at me. "Not alone," she said. I understood. Ethan had already shown me what he was willing to do behind a locked door. Amanda had shown me how easily she could discard my dignity. Melissa had shown me tears could be used as camouflage. I would not walk back into that house with only hurt feelings and a key that no longer worked. This time, I would bring records. This time, I would bring witnesses. And this time, when they looked through the glass at me, they would not be looking at an old woman they could frighten off the porch. They would be looking at the legal owner of the home they tried to steal. While I was sitting in the county recorder's office holding certified proof that my house still belonged to me, Ethan was standing in my living room telling our family I had lost my mind. I learned that later from Emily. At the time, I only knew that my phone would not stop buzzing. By the time Linda and I left the government building, I had 6 missed calls from Melissa, 3 from Ethan, 1 from Amanda, and a string of text messages that grew uglier with each minute I ignored them. "Mom, where are you? You need to stop this. You're scaring everyone. If you involve outsiders, you'll regret it. We are trying to protect you." That last one came from Melissa. I stared at it outside the courthouse steps, the certified copies pressed against my ribs beneath my coat, and I almost laughed. Protect me. They had locked me out, pushed my clothes onto the porch, attempted to file a deed with a false signature, and now they were still calling it protection. Linda read my face. "Don't answer yet." I wasn't going to. "Good. People like this want your voice emotional. Give them paper instead." That sentence stayed with me. Give them paper instead. Linda took me to a small diner 2 blocks away, the kind with vinyl booths and waitresses who called everyone honey. I ordered tea I barely drank. She ordered coffee and a bowl of soup, then watched me arrange the certified copies on the table between us, as if they were fragile bones. "You need a lawyer who understands real estate and elder exploitation," she said. The words made me flinch. Elder exploitation. I know it's ugly to hear. It sounds like something that happens to other women. It always does, until it happens at your own front door. I looked out the window at people walking past in the drizzle. They had places to go, offices to reach, ordinary complaints to carry. My life had split open before lunch, and the city had not even noticed. Linda pulled out her phone. "I know someone. James Whitmore. He's not flashy, but he's careful. Careful is what you need. Can he see me today?" "For this, he will." She made the call right there. I listened as her voice changed into the polished firmness of a woman who had spent decades getting clerks, attorneys, and officials to do what needed doing. "James, it's Linda Brooks. I have a situation involving an elderly homeowner, possible attempted fraudulent quitclaim deed, changed locks, family members occupying the residence, and certified records proving ownership. She paused, then glanced at me. Yes? Today? Another pause. Good. We'll be there at 2. When she hung up, I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. Thank you, I said. She stirred her coffee. Don't thank me yet. This is going to hurt before it gets better. I know. But I did not know. Not fully. The next blow came from Emily. Her message arrived while Linda was paying the check. Grandma, are you okay, Mom? And Uncle Ethan are telling everyone you signed things and then forgot. They said you're staying somewhere because you got confused and angry. Is that true? I read the message 3 times. My hands went numb. Linda saw my face. What happened? I handed her the phone. She read it, then closed her eyes briefly. They're building the narrative. What narrative? That you're unstable. That they're responsible. That any legal action you take is confusion, not self-defense. I took the phone back and typed slowly. Emily, I am safe. I did not sign the house over to anyone. I have official certified records proving I still own my home. Please do not argue with them. Just pay attention. The typing bubbles appeared almost instantly. I knew something was wrong. Amanda is talking about contractors. Uncle Ethan said the house needs updates before decisions are made. Mom cried and said you're making everyone look bad. I closed my eyes. There it was again. Not, are you safe? Not, did we hurt you? Not, what is true? You're making everyone look bad. As if reputation were the injury. As if my humiliation on the porch had been acceptable until someone else might hear about it. Emily says they're talking about contractors, I said. Linda's expression darkened. Then you need that lawyer before they remove damage or sell anything. I thought of William's chair, his tools in the garage, the framed photograph in the hallway, the quilt on our bed. Suddenly, every object inside the house felt vulnerable. At 2 o'clock, Linda and I walked into the office of Attorney James Whitmore. His office was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building near the courthouse. No marble lobby, no dramatic skyline view. Just clean, carpet-framed certificates, a receptionist with kind eyes, and shelves full of legal books that looked used rather than decorative. James Whitmore was in his late 50s, tall, with graying hair and a calm face. He did not rush when he shook my hand. He did not speak to Linda instead of me. He looked directly at me and said, Mrs. Grant, I'm sorry you're going through this. Tell me what happened from the beginning. That almost made me cry. Not because the words were extraordinary, but because he asked me to speak as if I were still the authority on my own life. So I told him. I told him about William, the house, the questions about documents, the missing mail, the pressure to sign Amanda's for now, the note William left, the changed locks, the trash bag, the motel Linda, the certified records, and the rejected quitclaim deed. James listened without interrupting, except to clarify dates. He wrote notes on a yellow legal pad, his handwriting small and precise. Linda added details when records terminology mattered. I gave him my blue notebook. He read several entries, his expression growing more serious with each page. When he reached the yellow sticky note I had saved sign here, he looked up. You kept this? Yes. Good. Then I handed him the printed rejection notice. He studied it for a long time. This is very significant, he said. My heart pounded. Does it prove the deed was fake? It proves an attempted filing was rejected for defects. The signature discrepancy and notarial problems are especially important. We'll need to obtain whatever supporting information the recorder's office can provide and possibly compare the signature with known examples. But yes, this is strong evidence that something improper occurred. Can they keep me out of my house? Based on what I see here, they have no ownership interest that allows them to exclude you. If they are occupying the property without your consent, and if they change the locks against you, we have several options. Options like what? He folded his hands. First, a formal demand letter. They must restore your access immediately and cease representing themselves as owners. Second, if needed, we involve law enforcement through the proper civil process, especially because there may be fraud involved. Third, we preserve the evidence concerning the attempted deed. Fourth, we address any elder abuse or exploitation concerns if the facts support that. Elder abuse. There was that phrase again, now sitting in a lawyer's office under fluorescent lights. My voice shook. They're my children. James's eyes softened. I understand. No, I said quietly. I don't think anyone understands what it feels like to hear those words about people you raised. He did not argue. He simply said, you can love them and still protect yourself from them. That sentence opened something in me. For weeks, I had felt trapped between two impossible choices, be a mother or defend myself. James made it sound as if I could be both, as if self-protection did not cancel love, as if refusing to be destroyed was not the same as betrayal. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Ethan. James glanced at it. May I see? I handed him the phone. The message read, if you went to the county office, you are making a serious mistake. You have no idea what Amanda and I have already done. James's eyebrows lifted slightly. Linda leaned over, read it, and muttered, well, that was foolish of him. James said, screenshot it. I did. Then another message came. You're going to tear this family apart over a house. I stared at the words. Over a house, not over a forged signature, not over locked doors, not over lying to relatives, not over throwing a widow's clothes onto a porch. Over a house. I typed nothing back. James said, do not respond directly unless I approve the wording. From this point forward, let written communication be strategic. I nodded. He prepared an engagement agreement, and I signed it with my real signature, slowly, deliberately feeling the difference between my hand and the imitation someone had tried to pass as mine. Before we left, James made copies of everything and placed the originals back in my envelope. I'll draft the demand letter immediately, he said. But Mrs. Grant, I need you to understand something. When people go this far, they often panic when confronted. Do not go back alone. Do not meet them alone. Do not let them talk you into a private family discussion. I thought of Ethan behind the glass, Amanda's eyes, Melissa's tears. I won't. As Linda drove me back to the motel, my phone buzzed once more. Emily. Grandma, they're telling everyone you're trying to punish them. I don't believe it. I saw Uncle Ethan hide papers last week. I didn't know what they were. I'm scared. I held the phone to my chest. In all that darkness, one small light had appeared. Emily was watching, and truth once watched carefully had a way of surviving. That night, back in the motel room, I placed the certified copies beside William's note. I no longer saw them as papers. They were my witnesses. My children had lied to the family, but the records had not lied to me. By the next morning, the papers had names. That was how Attorney James Whitmore explained it to me when I arrived at his office with Linda by my side and my purse pressed tightly against my ribs. Yesterday, they had been records. Today, they had become a legal file. James had organized everything into labeled folders: current deed record, survivorship affidavit, mortgage satisfaction, rejected quitclaim deed, text messages, motel receipt, personal timeline, photographs. I looked at those folders spread across his desk and felt a strange mixture of grief and strength. My life, my marriage, my home, my humiliation, everything had been sorted into evidence. Mrs. Grant James said, "We are going to move carefully, but not slowly." Those words steadied me. He had already drafted a demand letter addressed to Ethan Grant, Melissa Turner, and Amanda Grant. He read it aloud, and every sentence felt like a door unlocking. It stated that I, Carolyn M. Grant, remained the sole legal owner of the property on Maple Ridge Lane. It stated that no valid deed had transferred ownership to Ethan or anyone else. It stated that my exclusion from the home was unauthorized. It demanded immediate restoration of my access return of all keys, preservation of all personal property, and no further renovations, removal of belongings, or representations that the house belonged to anyone else. Then came the paragraph that made my hands go cold. The attempted quitclaim deed filed under Ethan's name had been rejected by the county recorder due to signature discrepancy, improper notarization, incomplete legal description, and inconsistent grantee information. James wrote that any further attempt to rely on such a document could expose the involved parties to civil and possibly criminal consequences. Possibly criminal? I whispered. James set the letter down. I'm not saying that lightly. Linda sat beside me, silent but firm. I stared at the polished edge of his desk. He's my son. James nodded. Yes. And Melissa is my daughter. Yes. And if this goes forward, James said gently, it goes forward because of choices they made, not because you protected yourself. I wanted to believe that. Part of me did. Another part of me still saw Ethan at 4 years old, asleep on the couch, with one sock missing. I saw Melissa learning to ride a bicycle in the driveway, while William jogged beside her, one hand hovering behind the seat. I saw birthday candles, school plays, Thanksgiving tables. The heart does not release people simply because they wound you. But pain had begun teaching me what love alone never had. Remembering the child someone was cannot excuse the harm the adult chooses. James slid a pen toward me. With your permission, I'll send this letter today by email and certified mail. I'll also contact the Sheriff's Civil Division. We may need a deputy present when you return, not to escalate, but to keep everyone safe and prevent another lockout. I looked up. Can I go home? Yes, he said. But not alone, and not before we document the demand. The goal is to establish that you are not sneaking back into your own house. You are asserting lawful access as the owner. The owner. For days, my family had tried to make that word sound uncertain. James said it as plainly as a fact. I signed the authorization. My signature looked strong. While James scanned the letter, my phone rang again. Ethan. I looked at James. He shook his head. Let it go to voicemail. I did. A few seconds later, the voicemail appeared. James asked if I would play it on speaker. Ethan's voice filled the room, tight and angry. Mom, this has gone far enough. You're embarrassing yourself. You went digging around county offices like some paranoid old woman, and now you've got people putting ideas in your head. Amanda and I have handled things legally. Melissa agrees. The family agrees. You need to stop before you do damage you can't undo. The message ended. No one spoke for a moment. Then Linda said very quietly, He sounds scared. James nodded. He should be. My phone rang again almost immediately. This time, Melissa. I let it go. Her voicemail was softer, but somehow worse. Mom, please. Ethan is furious. Amanda is saying you're forcing everyone's hand. I don't know what you think you found, but you're making this so ugly. We can still fix this as a family if you stop involving strangers. Please don't make me choose sides. I stared at the phone. Choose sides. As if truth and theft were equal positions at a dinner table. As if I had created division by refusing to be erased. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. She still won't say they did wrong. James said, people who benefit from silence often call truth divisive. I saved both voicemails. Then James asked me to forward the screenshots from Ethan's messages. I did. He printed them and added them to the folder. When I saw Ethan's words on paper, "If you went to the county office, you are making a serious mistake," I felt the same cold clarity I had felt on the porch. He had known enough to fear the records. By late afternoon, the demand letter had been sent. The reaction came faster than any of us expected. Ethan texted first. "What is this attorney nonsense?" Then Amanda. "You have no idea what you're doing. That house needs responsible adults making decisions." Then Melissa. "Mom, please call me. Please don't make this legal." I sat in James's office, reading the messages one by one, and something in me, something tired and bruised, suddenly became still. James asked, "Would you like me to respond?" I looked at the messages again. For weeks, they had spoken over me, around me, about me. They had opened my mail, questioned my memory, canceled my appointments, moved my belongings, tried to pressure my signature, changed my locks, and told relatives I was confused. They had used my age as an accusation. They had used my grief as an opportunity. They had used my motherhood as a weakness. "No," I said. James looked surprised. "No, I want to send one message myself. You can approve it first." He waited. I typed slowly, my hands steady. "Ethan, Melissa, and Amanda, I have retained Attorney James Whitmore. From this point forward, all matters regarding my home and property are to go through him. I did not sign away my house. The official records confirm my ownership. Do not remove, sell, alter, or destroy anything in my home. Do not contact me except in writing." I handed the phone to James. He read it and nodded. "Send it." I did. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then Ethan called again. I did not answer. Amanda sent 3 dots, then stopped. Melissa sent a crying emoji, then deleted it before sending anything else. The silence that followed felt different from all the silences before. It was not the silence of fear. It was the silence that arrives when people realize the person they cornered has found a door. That evening, James called the sheriff's civil division and explained the situation. Because it was not a simple eviction, and because I was not a simple eviction, and because I had current ownership records, they advised that a civil deputy could accompany us for a standby while I returned to the property with counsel. James arranged it for the following morning. Be prepared. At current ownership records, they advised that a civil deputy could accompany us for a standby while I returned to the property with counsel. James arranged it for the following morning. Be prepared, he told me. They may act innocent. They may claim you misunderstood. They may cry. They may become angry. They may try to pull you aside privately. I won't go aside. Good. Linda drove me back to the motel. Before I got out of her car, she touched my arm. Carolyn, tomorrow is going to be hard. I know. No, she said softly. Hard in a different way. Seeing the truth on paper is one thing. Seeing your children forced to face it is another. I looked toward the motel, its flickering sign, its narrow outdoor stairs, its temporary rooms for people between one place and another. I already saw them through the glass, I said. Tomorrow they'll see me with proof. Linda nodded, but her eyes were sad. That night, I laid my clothes carefully over the chair. I chose the same navy coat. I placed William's note in my purse beside the certified copies. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the highway. My phone buzzed once more. Emily. Grandma Mom is crying. Uncle Ethan and Amanda are fighting. Amanda said, "That rejected deed was supposed to be fixed. I thought you should know." I stared at that sentence. That rejected deed was supposed to be fixed. Not denied, not unknown. Fixed. I took a screenshot and sent it to James. Then I placed the phone beside me and covered my face. The truth was no longer just approaching. It was entering the room, and tomorrow it would enter my house. The morning I returned to my house, I did not pray for victory. I prayed for steadiness. There is a difference. Victory can make a person hungry for humiliation. Steadiness only asks that you not lose yourself when others try to drag you into their shame. I sat on the edge of the motel bed with William's note in my lap, my navy coat buttoned, my hair pinned neatly, and the certified copies stacked inside a folder Attorney James Whitmore had given me. The folder was plain black. No decoration, no softness, just paper strong enough to answer lies. James arrived at the motel at 9:30. Linda came with him carrying her own folder and a thermos of coffee she had probably forgotten to drink. The sheriff's civil division had assigned a deputy to meet us near the property at 10. James reminded me again that this was not an eviction scene from television. It was a civil standby. The deputy was there to prevent conflict and document that I was lawfully attempting to access my property. "Let me speak first," James said. "I understand. If they insult you, don't answer. I understand. If they cry, don't give away your position." That one made me look at him. He softened his voice. "I know that sounds harsh. It sounds necessary." He nodded. Linda touched my hand. "Remember, Carolyn, you are not asking permission today." I held that sentence all the way back to Maple Ridge Lane. When we turned onto my street, my chest tightened so sharply, I almost asked James to pull over. The house appeared between the maple trees, familiar and strange at once. Ethan's SUV was in the driveway. Amanda's crossover was beside it. Melissa's sedan was parked at the curb again. For one painful second, I remembered pulling into that same driveway years ago, with groceries in the trunk and children waiting inside. I remembered William opening the front door before I even reached it, calling, "Need a hand, Care." I remembered belonging so completely, I never thought belonging could be challenged. Then I saw the new lock shining on the front door, and I remembered why we were there. The deputy arrived in a marked county vehicle. He was a broad-shouldered man named Deputy Harris, polite but serious. James spoke with him near the curb and handed over copies of the current ownership record and his letter. Deputy Harris read them carefully, then looked at me. "Mrs. Grant, you are the listed owner." "Yes." "And you have been excluded from the residence." "Yes." He looked toward the house. "All right, we'll keep this calm." I appreciated that he did not say simple. Nothing about standing outside your own home while your children occupied it was simple. We walked up the brick path together, James first, then Deputy Harris, then me and Linda. My legs felt unsteady, but I made myself keep my pace even. Mrs. Patterson's curtains moved across the street. I pretended not to notice. James rang the doorbell. For a moment, nothing happened. Then voices inside. Fast, low, alarmed. The door opened only a few inches, caught by the chain. Ethan's face appeared in the gap. He looked tired, unshaven, and furious. His eyes went first to James, then to the deputy, then finally to me. "Mom," he said, as if I had arrived with a circus. James stepped forward. "Ethan Grant." "Who are you, James?" "Whitmore counsel for Carolyn Grant." Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is a family matter." "No," James said. "This is a property and legal access matter." From behind, Ethan Amanda's voice snapped. "Don't let them in." Deputy Harris spoke calmly. "Sir, please open the door fully." Ethan looked at him. "Do you have a warrant?" "This is not a search," the deputy said. "I'm here for a civil standby while the legal owner accesses her property. I've reviewed documentation." Melissa appeared behind Ethan, pale and trembling. "Mom, why are you doing this?" That almost reached me. Almost. Then Amanda pushed into view wearing my cream cardigan. My cardigan, the one William had given me on our 35th anniversary, because he said it made me look soft as Sunday morning. Seeing Amanda in it turned my sadness into a hard, clean line. I did not speak. James did. Mr. Grant opened the door. Ethan unlatched the chain with visible reluctance. The door swung open. The smell of my house met me first. Lavender, old wood, coffee, familiar air. I had not expected that to hurt, but it did. Amanda stood in the foyer, arms folded, my cardigan wrapped around her like possession. Melissa hovered near the stairs, crying silently. Ethan blocked the entry until Deputy Harris gave him a look that made him step aside. James turned slightly toward me. "Mrs. Grant." I crossed the threshold. For days I had imagined this moment as triumphant. I thought perhaps I would feel powerful or vindicated. Instead, I felt like I was walking into a room where someone had torn pages out of my diary. The entry table had been moved. William's umbrella was gone from the stand. The anniversary photograph in the hallway had been taken down again, leaving a pale rectangle on the wall where the frame had protected the paint. I stopped. "Where is my husband's photograph?" No one answered. Amanda looked away. Melissa whispered, "Mom, please." Deputy Harris glanced around, taking mental notes. James noticed too. "We will address personal property removal separately," he said. Ethan laughed without humor. "Personal property? We're talking about a picture. We are talking about items belonging to my client inside her home," James replied. Amanda stepped forward. "Carolyn is not capable of managing this house. We have been trying to help. She gets confused. She forgets things. She overreacts. You people don't understand the family history." Linda spoke for the first time. "I understand the record history." Amanda's eyes shifted to her. "And you are Linda Brooks, retired from the county recorder's office." The color in Amanda's face changed. Ethan recovered faster. "Retired. So, you have no authority." Linda smiled faintly. "Authority and knowledge are not the same thing, Mr. Grant. But today the records are doing the talking." James opened his folder and removed the certified deed record. The official records show Carolyn M. Grant as the sole owner of this property following William Grant's death. "There is no recorded transfer to you, Mr. Grant. No valid deed. No accepted conveyance. No legal authority allowing you to exclude her." Melissa wiped her face. But Ethan said. James turned to her. "What Ethan said does not alter the recorder's official record." Amanda's voice sharpened. "We have papers. Then produce them," James said. Silence. Ethan looked toward Amanda. Amanda looked towards the hallway. Melissa looked at the floor. That silence had a shape. A guilty one. James continued. "We are also aware of an attempted quitclaim deed submitted recently and rejected by the county recorder." Amanda looked toward the hallway. Melissa looked at the floor. That silence had a shape. A guilty one. James continued. "We are also aware of an attempted quitclaim deed submitted recently and rejected by the county recorder." Deputy Harris looked up from his notes. Ethan's face tightened. "That was a paperwork issue," Linda said. "It was rejected for multiple reasons, including signature discrepancy and improper notarization." Amanda snapped. "Rejected doesn't mean fraudulent." "No," James said calmly. "But it means it gave you no right to change the locks." Ethan pointed at me. She signed enough for me to act. I finally spoke. "No, Ethan, I didn't." The room went still. He looked at me, then really looked at me, perhaps expecting the old mother. The one who softened when his voice rose, the one who gave him the larger slice of cake, the one who forgave before he apologized. That mother still existed, but she was no longer available for theft. "You stood behind that glass," I said, "and told me this wasn't my home anymore." Melissa began sobbing. "Mom, we were scared for you." I looked at her. "No, Melissa, you were scared I would say no." Her face crumpled. James placed the certified copies on the entry table. Mrs. Grant's access is to be restored today. She will receive all keys today. She will receive all keys CCODs, garage openers, and any other means of entry. No belongings are to be removed. No contractors are to enter. No changes are to be made without her written consent. ODs, garage openers, and any other means of entry. No belongings are to be removed. No contractors are to enter. No changes are to be made without her written consent. Amanda laughed bitterly. This is ridiculous. She can't maintain this place. Deputy Harris spoke before James could. Ma'am, maintenance concerns don't allow you to lock out the owner. Amanda's mouth shut. That was the moment I felt the balance in the room shift. For weeks they had controlled the story because they controlled the house. But now the story had witnesses. The foyer, once their stage, had become the place where their lies started losing oxygen. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Fine. She wants the house. Let her have it, but don't come crying when everything falls apart. I looked at him and felt the old pain flare. Everything already fell apart when you changed the locks. He flinched. Not enough. But he flinched. James asked again for the keys. Ethan pulled a new key ring from his pocket and slapped it onto the entry table. Amanda disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a garage remote. Melissa handed over a side door key with shaking fingers. I picked them up one by one. They felt heavier than metal should. Then I walked past them into the living room. William's chair was still there, but someone had moved it away from the window. The quilt was folded over the back, not quite right. A box of my things sat open near the wall. Framed photos, old letters, church bulletins, small pieces of a life they had decided could be packed before I was even gone. I stood in the center of that room and breathed. I was inside, not as a guest, not as a burden, not as a confused old woman being managed, as the owner, as William's wife, as Carolyn Grant. Behind me, Amanda whispered something to Ethan. Melissa cried softly. Deputy Harris remained near the door. Linda stood with quiet pride. James waited, giving me the dignity of the moment. I turned back to my family. This house remembered the truth I said, even when you didn't. No one answered, and for once, I did not need them to. James did not let the silence last. He looked at Ethan, then Amanda, then Melissa, and said, Now we need to see the document you claim gave you authority to change the locks. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You already have your records. I have official records, James said. Now I want to see the paper you relied on when you told my client this was no longer her home. Amanda folded her arms tighter around my cream cardigan. We don't have to show you anything. Linda spoke quietly. Then you admit there is nothing valid. Amanda's eyes flashed. I didn't say that. Deputy Harris remained near the doorway silent, but his presence changed the air. Nobody could pretend this was just a family argument anymore. Every word felt like it might land somewhere official. Melissa wiped her face with both hands. Ethan, just show them. Ethan turned on her. Stay out of this. No, she said, voice trembling. You told me there was paperwork. There is paperwork. Then show it. For a brief moment, I saw the old sibling dynamic flicker between them. The older brother irritated at being questioned, the younger sister afraid but tired of being managed. It might have softened me on another day. But standing in my living room with my husband's photograph missing from the wall and my belongings in boxes, I had no softness left for performances. James waited. Finally, Amanda exhaled sharply and marched toward the dining room. Fine, she opened the drawer of my china cabinet. My china cabinet, the one William bought secondhand and refinished in the garage over 2 weekends because I had admired a similar one in a store window. Amanda pulled from it a manila envelope I had never seen before. That detail stung. They had hidden their papers inside my furniture. She handed the envelope to Ethan, but James extended his hand before Ethan could open it privately. "I'll take that." Ethan held it a second too long. Deputy Harris shifted slightly. Ethan released it. James opened the envelope on the dining room table. Inside were photocopies. Not originals. A stapled packet with uneven pages. A printout of the online power of attorney form I had refused to sign. A copy of the so-called family property management agreement with no valid signature from me. And then near the bottom, a photocopy of the attempted quitclaim deed. The room seemed to tighten around it. James placed it flat on the table. "Mrs. Grant," he said, "please look at this carefully, but do not touch it yet." I stepped closer. There was my name typed at the top. Carolyn M. Grant, grantor. Below it, Ethan R. Grant, grantee. The legal description was incomplete, just as the rejection notice had said. The notary section looked wrong even before I studied it closely, but my eyes went straight to the signature line. Carolyn M. Grant. A cold wave passed through me. It was my name, but not my hand. The C was too tight. The M was too pointed. The final T in Grant lifted in a little hook I had never made in my life. I had signed checks, school forms, mortgage papers, legal correspondence, birthday cards, sympathy notes, and church donation slips for more than 50 years. I knew the rhythm of my own signature better than I knew most prayers. "That is not my signature," I said. Ethan scoffed. "Mom people's signatures change." I looked at him. "Not into someone else's?" Amanda snapped. "You were tired that day." "What day?" No one answered. James leaned over the document. "The date here is July 8th. I froze. July 8th. My mind moved backward. July 8th. A Tuesday. I remembered because the morning had started with fasting blood work, and William's old wall calendar still had the appointment written on it in my handwriting from weeks before. "I was at Riverside Medical Center that morning," I said. Melissa looked up. I continued slowly as the memory sharpened. I had a cardiology follow-up. They ran tests because Dr. Henson was concerned about my blood pressure. Emily drove me home afterward because I was lightheaded. "Emily," I turned toward Melissa. "Your daughter was with me." Melissa's lips parted. Ethan's face had gone pale beneath his anger. James made a note. "We will request medical records and appointment verification." Linda leaned closer to the photocopy. "There's another issue." James looked at her. Linda pointed to the printed name beneath the signature. Carolyn Marie Grant. I stared at it. For 1 second, I did not understand why my chest had tightened again. Then I saw it. Marie. My middle name was May. Carolyn May Grant. Not Marie. Never Marie. William used to tease me that May sounded like a spring month, soft and stubborn. It was on my birth certificate, my marriage license, every mortgage document, every tax record, every official paper I had ever signed. Whoever prepared that deed did not even know my middle name. A strange laugh escaped me, not because anything was funny, because the carelessness was obscene. "They wrote Marie," I said. Amanda's face changed, just slightly, but I saw it. James did too. "Mrs. Grant?" he asked. "Have you ever used Carolyn Marie Grant as a legal name?" "No." "Ever signed any document that way?" "No." "Is your legal middle name May?" "Yes." Linda said, "The recorded property history uses Carolyn M. Grant, but the survivorship affidavit includes Carolyn May Grant in full. Anyone with the complete official record would have known." I looked at Ethan. "You didn't even know my middle name," he shouted. "This is not about your middle name." Deputy Harris immediately said, "Sir, lower your voice." The room went still again. Ethan breathed hard, fists clenched at his sides. Amanda stepped back from the table as if distance might separate her from the paper. Melissa stared at the photocopy with horror spreading across her face. "Ethan," she whispered, "you said Mom signed it. She did sign things," he snapped. "I did not sign that," I said. Amanda pointed at me. "You don't remember everything." I looked at her. Then explained my wrong middle name. Her mouth opened, closed. Ethan said, "The online form must have autofilled wrong." Linda almost smiled. Online forms don't invent a mother's middle name. Melissa turned to Amanda. "Did you fill this out?" Amanda's eyes widened. "Why are you asking me?" "Because you're the one who found the forms." "I helped organize them." Ethan handled his mother. Handled. The word struck me like a slap. James placed a hand lightly on the document, keeping everyone's attention on it. "Let me be very clear. This deed was not accepted. It transferred nothing. But if this signature is not Mrs. Grant's, then the attempt itself is deeply serious." Ethan pointed at Amanda. "She said the notary thing could be fixed." Amanda rounded on him. "Don't you dare put this on me!" Melissa began crying again, but this time the tears seemed less practiced. "What did you two do?" Amanda's face twisted. "Don't act innocent, Melissa. You told us she was getting forgetful. You told Ethan people would believe it if we said she was confused." Melissa stepped back as if Amanda had shoved her. "I said she was grieving," Melissa whispered. "No," Amanda said. "You said she was becoming difficult. You said if she fought us, we could explain it." Ethan shouted, "Stop talking!" But the truth had already slipped loose. I stood very still. There are moments when betrayal becomes too large for tears. It fills the room so completely that crying would feel too small a response. I looked at my son, my daughter, and my daughter-in-law, and I understood at last that this had not been one person's greed dragging the others along. Each had carried a piece. Ethan had wanted control. Amanda had wanted the house. Melissa had given them the language to make me look unstable. Maybe Melissa had not forged the signature. Maybe Ethan had not typed the wrong middle name. Maybe Amanda had not changed the locks alone. But each of them had touched the lie somewhere and decided not to put it down. Emily's warning came back to me. Amanda said, "That rejected deed was supposed to be fixed." I looked at Amanda. "You knew it was rejected." She said nothing. "You knew," I repeated. Ethan's face hardened. "It was a technical issue." "No," James said. "A false signature is not a technical issue." Deputy Harris stepped forward. "Mr. Whitmore, are you requesting that this document be preserved?" "Yes," James said. "We will need a copy retained and no destruction of originals if any exist." "There are no originals," Amanda said quickly. Too quickly. Everyone looked at her. James's voice remained calm. "Then we will address that through legal channels." I turned away from the table because suddenly I could not bear to look at the paper anymore. My eyes found the empty rectangle on the hallway wall where William's photograph had hung. For one aching second, I wished he were there. Then I realized he was. Not in the way I wanted, not standing beside me hand warm at my back, but in the note, in the records, in the warning that had led me to Linda, in every careful step he had taken before dying to make sure paper told the truth when blood did not. I faced my family again. "You didn't just try to take my house," I said. "You tried to take my voice. You tried to make people believe I was too old to know my own life." Melissa sobbed. "Mom, I'm sorry." I looked at her. "Not yet, you aren't. Right now, you're caught." She flinched. Ethan glared at me with a kind of desperation I had never seen in him before. "What do you want from us?" I looked at the false signature again, then at the wrong middle name, then at the boxes of my belongings. "The truth," I said, "and you have already started giving it to me." James gathered the photocopies carefully. Deputy Harris documented the exchange. Linda stood beside me like a witness carved from stone. And for the first time since this began, my family stopped calling me confused. Because confusion had never been the problem. My clarity was, the next truth did not come from Ethan, Amanda, or Melissa. It came from William. After James secured copies of the photocopied deed and Deputy Harris documented the situation, the room stayed heavy with the kind of silence that follows exposure. Ethan looked angry enough to break something. Amanda looked trapped. Melissa looked smaller than I had ever seen her, standing near the dining room doorway with one hand at her throat. James gathered the papers carefully. "Mrs. Grant, before we leave today, there is one more matter I'd like to review." I looked at him. "What matter?" He opened his briefcase and removed a folder I had seen only briefly in his office. It was labeled William Grant Letter. My heart shifted. Linda's eyes softened as if she knew this part would hurt me more than all the legal language before it. James said, "When we reviewed the documents your husband left, I contacted the small law office where you once worked. The firm changed names, but old archives were preserved. They found a letter from William to attorney Robert Hale dated 8 months before William passed." The room seemed to move farther away. 8 months before William died. That was when he was already tired, already thinner, already pretending the pain was less than it was. I remembered bringing soup to his chair, adjusting his blanket, arguing with him when he tried to fix a loose outlet because he could barely stand. And all that time, he had been thinking about the house. About me. James looked at me gently. "Would you like me to read it?" I nodded, though I was not sure I could bear it. He unfolded the letter. "Dear Mr. Hale, I am writing because I want to make sure my wife, Carolyn May Grant, is fully protected regarding our home on Maple Ridge Lane after my death. Carolyn and I bought this house together, paid for it together, and it is my wish that she remain in full control of it for the rest of her life." James paused. My eyes filled instantly at the sound of my full name written correctly in William's careful hand. "Carolyn May Grant, not Marie. May." James continued, "I do not want any of our children, relatives, or their spouses to pressure her transfer her interest, manage the property, sell the property, borrow against it, or remove her from the home unless she freely chooses such action with independent legal advice." A sound came from Melissa, half sob, half breath. Ethan stared at the floor. Amanda looked away. James kept reading. "I am concerned that after I am gone, Carolyn's grief may be mistaken for weakness. She is not weak. She is trusting. There is a difference. She may hesitate to believe our children could act selfishly, especially regarding the house. I ask that the records reflect survivorship clearly, and that she be advised never to sign any property document under family pressure." The words struck me so deeply I had to sit down. Linda moved a chair behind me before I could ask. William had known me better than I knew myself. He knew my tenderness. He knew my habit of explaining away the people I loved. He knew I would rather doubt my own fear than believe my children had become dangerous to me. James continued, his voice steady. "If Ethan ever claims he is entitled to the house because he is my son, he is wrong. If Melissa ever claims Carolyn cannot manage the property because she is older or grieving, she is wrong. If any spouse of either child attempts to influence this matter, they are to be treated as an outside party with no ownership interest." Amanda's face went white. Ethan finally looked up. "He named us." James did not answer him directly. He looked at the letter. "Your father was specific." Ethan's mouth twisted. "So Dad didn't trust me." I turned to him. "No," I said softly. "He hoped he was wrong about you." That silenced him. James read the final paragraph. Carolyn gave her life to this family. I cannot protect her from grief, but I can make sure no one uses grief to take what belongs to her. Please prepare whatever is necessary so the official record is clear. If questions ever arise, send her to the county recorder. The record must speak when I no longer can. James lowered the page. For a moment, I could not see clearly. The living room blurred the boxes, the table, the people who had betrayed me, the deputy by the door, Linda standing beside James. All of it dissolved beneath the weight of William's love. The record must speak when I no longer can. I pressed a hand over my mouth. During his last months, I had thought William was only fighting illness, but he had also been fighting the future. Quietly, carefully, without frightening me, without poisoning my heart against our children before there was proof. He had not left me suspicion. He had left me protection. Melissa stepped forward crying. Mom, I didn't know Dad wrote that. I looked at her. But you knew what you were saying about me. She froze. You knew every time you called me confused. You knew every time you said I couldn't handle paperwork. You knew when you told people I had signed things and forgotten. Your father warned against exactly that. Her tears fell faster. I thought Ethan had a plan. A plan to do what Melissa. She shook her head. To keep things in the family. I looked around the room at the walls William painted, at the floor he repaired, at the home we had carried through decades. It was already in the family, I said. I am family, Amanda muttered. Nobody said you weren't. I turned to her slowly. You put my clothes in a trash bag. Her lips pressed together. You wore my sweater. She looked down at the cardigan as if she had forgotten it was on her body. Then awkwardly, almost angrily, she took it off and dropped it over a chair. That small gesture hurt more than I expected. Not because I wanted the sweater back that way, but because even surrender from Amanda came without tenderness. Ethan spoke again, quieter now. Dad wrote that before he knew how hard things would be. I stared at him. Hard for whom? He swallowed. For all of us. No, I said. Do not turn your greed into hardship. His eyes flashed. You think I wanted to hurt you? I think you wanted the house badly enough not to care. The words hung between us. For the first time, Ethan had no quick reply. James placed William's letter on the dining room table beside the fake deed. The contrast was almost unbearable. One paper written in love to protect me. One paper prepared in deceit to erase me. Both carried my name. Only one told the truth. Linda said quietly, William made sure the survivorship record was clear. That is why the attempted deed did not quietly slip through. James nodded. The prior record, the correct legal description, and the discrepancies all helped. Without that clarity, this could have become far more complicated. I looked at the letter again. William had saved me before I even knew I needed saving. But the saving was not only legal. It was emotional. Because in that moment, I no longer felt foolish for trusting my children too long. William had seen the danger and still understood why I might hesitate. He had not blamed me for loving them. He had simply prepared for the day love would not be enough. Melissa whispered, Mom, what happens now? I looked at James. He did not answer for me. That mattered. All my life I had let others speak first. William, because I trusted him. My children, because I loved them. Doctors, clerks, relatives, because I was raised to be polite. But now, everyone in that room waited for my voice. I stood slowly. What happens now, I said, is that I stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. Ethan looked away. Amanda stared at the floor. Melissa sobbed into her hand. I continued. What happens now is that the legal process continues. James will handle the forged signature, the rejected deed, the lock change, and anything removed from this house. I will not protect anyone from the consequences of choices they made against me. Melissa cried, Mom, please? I shook my head. Please was what I should have heard before you locked me out. Her face crumpled. I turned toward the empty place on the wall. And before anyone leaves today, William's photograph goes back where it belongs. No one moved. Then Linda walked into the dining room, opened a box near the wall, and lifted the framed anniversary photo from beneath a stack of old magazines. She handed it to me, not to Ethan, not to Melissa, to me. I held it against my chest for a moment before hanging it back in the hallway. William's smile returned to the wall, and suddenly the house felt a little less invaded. I stood beneath his photograph and looked at my family. My husband protected me because he loved me, I said. You tried to control me because you wanted something from me. Do not confuse those two things ever again. No one answered, but this time, their silence was not power. It was defeat. I asked them to leave from the same living room where they had once learned how to say their first words. That was the cruelty of it. Every corner of that house held a memory that argued against the present. Ethan's height marks were still penciled inside the pantry door. Faint lines with dates written in William's blocky handwriting. Melissa's old piano books were still boxed in the closet beneath the stairs. The fireplace mantel had held their Christmas stockings for decades. The dining room had heard their laughter, their teenage complaints, their wedding plans, their children's first holiday squeals. And now I stood beneath William's photograph, asking my own children to remove themselves from my home. Not because I hated them, because I finally loved myself enough to stop giving them access to harm me. James stood a few feet away, respectful and silent. Linda remained near the hallway. Deputy Harris had stepped outside to make a call, but stayed close enough that everyone knew he had not left. The forged signature photocopy sat inside James's folder. William's letter lay on the table beside the certified copies. The truth had taken physical form in that room, and no one could talk around it anymore. Ethan was the first to speak. So, this is it, he said, voice rough. You're throwing your own son out. I looked at him for a long moment. No, Ethan. I am requiring you to leave a house you tried to take. So this is it, he said, voice rough. You're throwing your own son out. I looked at him for a long moment. No, Ethan. I am requiring you to leave a house you tried to take. His mouth tightened. You're enjoying this. The accusation was so wrong it nearly stole my breath. Enjoying it? I repeated. You think I wanted to stand here with a lawyer and a deputy because my son locked me out? He looked away. Amanda, who had finally removed my cardigan, stood near the entry table with her purse clutched under her arm. Her face had lost its polish. The perfect confidence she had polish. The perfect confidence she had worn for months was gone, replaced by something smaller and sharper. This is going to ruin us, she said. I looked at her. No. What you did may ruin you. She swallowed. Ethan could lose his job if this becomes a legal issue. Worn for months was gone, replaced by something smaller and sharper. This is going to ruin us, she said. I looked at her. No, what you did may ruin you. She swallowed. Ethan could lose his job if this becomes a legal issue, James said calmly. Then Ethan should cooperate fully, and preserve all records. Amanda shot him a glare. I wasn't talking to you, but you are discussing a legal matter involving my client, he replied. Melissa sank into the armchair near the window, the chair William used to sit in before the illness made stairs difficult. Seeing her there made anger rise in me for the first time that day. Not hot anger, not loud anger, a deep, aching anger that had waited behind grief and now finally stood up. Please don't sit there, I said. Melissa looked startled. What? That was your father's chair. Her face crumpled again, but she stood. Mom, she whispered, I know you're hurt. No, I said, you don't. She pressed a hand to her mouth. You know you are uncomfortable. You know you are ashamed. You know you are afraid of consequences. But you do not yet know what it feels like to stand outside your own door while your children look at you through glass. Ethan muttered. We already said we thought. You thought what I cut in. That if you said I was old enough, times, the truth would get tired and leave. The room froze. For weeks, I had held my voice tight. I had measured every sentence. I had let James speak because the law needed precision. But now, this was no longer only law. This was my life asking to be heard. I turned to Ethan. I carried you inside this house when you had chickenpox and cried because you missed your school field trip. Your father stayed up all night building your science fair project because you forgot until the last minute. I signed loan forms for your college-packed food when you moved out and never once told you that loving you was too much work. His eyes reddened, though he fought it. Then I turned to Melissa. I held your hand through your divorce scare before you and Daniel worked things out. I watched Emily when you needed rest. I listened to every fear you had and never called you confused for having them. Melissa sobbed openly now. Finally, I looked at Amanda. And you came into this family and mistook my kindness for vacancy. You walked through my rooms like you were measuring drapes for a future I had not agreed to give you. Amanda's chin lifted. I wanted stability for my family. So did I said. That is why you are leaving. James stepped forward slightly. Mrs. Grant has the right to set conditions for continued access to her home. Given the circumstances, my advice is that all three of you vacate today with only personal belongings that can be clearly identified as yours. Anything disputed remains until inventoried. Ethan stared at him. Today? Yes, James said. Melissa looked panicked. Mom, where are we supposed to go? I looked at her carefully. Melissa, you have your own home. But Ethan and Amanda made adult choices. Amanda snapped. We can't just pack up in an hour, James replied. Then arrange a time through my office to retrieve additional belongings under supervision. But you will not remain here tonight. The words settled over the room like a verdict. Ethan stepped toward me, and for a moment, James moved too. But Ethan stopped before crossing whatever line he still had sense enough to see. Mom, he said quieter now. Please, don't file anything. Don't make this public. I was under pressure. Amanda kept saying we needed to secure the house before repairs got out of control. Melissa kept saying you weren't thinking clearly. I made mistakes, but I'm your son. There it was. Not full confession. Not real remorse. A bargain wrapped in blood. I felt something inside me ache toward him. It would have been easier if he had remained cruel. Cruelty is simpler to reject. But pleading has a way of reaching the mother in you, even when the mother in you is bleeding. I took a breath. You are my son, I said. That is why this hurts beyond words. But being my son does not give you the right to steal from me, lie about me, or lock me outside. His mouth trembled once. "So you're choosing a house over me?" "No," I said. "You chose the house over me. I am choosing the truth over your version of family." He looked as if I had struck him. Melissa stepped forward. "Mom, please don't break us." I turned to her. "You broke something the moment you helped them make me look unstable. I am only refusing to keep pretending it is whole." She covered her face. At that moment, the front door opened gently. Emily stepped inside. Melissa turned, startled. "Emily, what are you doing here?" Emily's eyes moved across the room, her mother crying. Ethan, pale and angry. Amanda rigid me, standing beneath William's photograph James with his folder Linda near the hallway. She looked young and frightened, but she did not retreat. "I came because Grandma texted me that she was home," Emily said. Melissa wiped her eyes. "This isn't your business." Emily's voice shook. "It became my business when you all lied to me." Melissa flinched. Emily looked at me. "Grandma?" "I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for." "Yes, I do," she said, tears forming. "I heard things. I saw things. I was scared to say anything because Mom kept telling me it was complicated. But it wasn't complicated. It was wrong." The room went quiet. Emily walked to me and hugged me carefully at first, then tightly. I felt her young shoulders shake against mine. I held her and closed my eyes. For the first time since this began, someone in my family touched me without wanting something. When she stepped back, Amanda was staring at her with open resentment. Emily met her gaze. "You shouldn't have worn Grandma's sweater." Such a simple sentence, such a human one. Amanda looked away. James cleared his throat gently. "We need to proceed." Ethan went upstairs to gather clothes. Amanda followed, muttering under her breath. Melissa stayed in the living room crying quietly until Emily walked past her without speaking. That hurt Melissa more than anything I had said. I saw it in her face. A mother knows when her child's respect has shifted. Within an hour, Ethan and Amanda left with 2 suitcases and no dignity. Melissa left last. At the door, she turned to me. "Will you ever forgive me?" I looked at my daughter, and I loved her. That was the hardest part. Even then, even after everything, love remained. But it no longer ruled me blindly. "I don't know," I said. "But forgiveness will not begin with tears. It will begin with truth." She nodded as if the words were heavier than she could carry. Then she left. When the door closed, the house exhaled. I stood in the entryway with the new keys in my hand. James told me we would continue the legal process. The attempted deed would be investigated. Communications would go through his office. The locks would be changed again, this time by my choice. An inventory would be made. Boundaries would be written, not assumed. I listened. I agreed. But inside, I was standing somewhere deeper than legal strategy. I was standing at this place where a woman stops begging to be valued by people who benefit from her silence. That evening, after everyone left except Emily, I walked through every room. I touched the mantel. I straightened William's photograph. I opened the pantry and saw Ethan's height marks. I cried then, but quietly. Emily stood beside me. "What now, Grandma?" she asked. I looked around the house that had survived greed lies and the hands of people who thought possession was power. "Now," I said, "we clean." And for the first time in days, the word home did not hurt. 3 months later, the house sounded like itself again. Not exactly as it had when William was alive. Nothing could bring back the sound of his boots by the basement stairs or his low humming when he repaired something in the garage. Grief does not reverse. It only softens around the edges when peace is allowed to return. But the house no longer held its breath. The first thing I did after Ethan, Amanda, and Melissa left was change the locks again. This time, I stood beside the locksmith while he worked. The morning was cool, and sunlight moved across the porch in soft gold strips. His tools clicked against the door, and I watched the old stolen lock come loose from the wood. I thought I would feel anger when it fell into his hand. Instead, I felt release. A lock can be a weapon when someone uses it to keep you out, but it can also be a promise when you choose it for yourself. When he handed me the new keys, I closed my fingers around them and whispered, "This one is mine." Emily was with me that day. She had come over with coffee muffins and a determination to clean every room, as if scrubbing hard enough could erase what had happened. She was only 22, but betrayal had aged something in her eyes. Not permanently, I hoped. Just enough to make her see adults more clearly. We started in the foyer. Amanda had moved small things everywhere. My entry table was pushed too far left. William's umbrella stand had been hidden in the coat closet. A box of my scarves had been shoved under the bench. Emily found the anniversary photograph's original nail on the floor beneath a rug, as if someone had tried to hide even the mark where love used to hang. She picked it up and looked at me. Why would they do this? I took the tiny nail from her palm. Because some people cannot take a house until they first try to take its memory. We put everything back slowly, not exactly as it had been before. That surprised me. At first, I thought healing meant restoring every object to its old place. But as days passed, I learned that reclaiming a home is not the same as freezing it in time. I kept William's photograph in the hallway, yes. I put his chair back by the window. I returned his umbrella to the stand, but I also opened the curtains wider. I donated furniture I had kept, only because I was afraid letting go meant loving less. I painted the den a warm cream instead of leaving it dim and brown. I placed fresh flowers on the kitchen table every Friday, not because company was coming, but because I was still here. James continued handling the legal side. The attempted quitclaim deed did not disappear quietly. There were interviews, statements, document requests, and consequences I never celebrated but refused to prevent. Ethan and Amanda moved into a rental across town. I heard through James that Ethan's employer placed him under review after questions arose about his judgment and integrity. Amanda stopped contacting me entirely after James sent formal notice that any further harassment would be documented. Melissa wrote letters. At first, I did not open them. They arrived in pale envelopes with careful handwriting, always addressed to Mom, never Carolyn. I always addressed to Mom, never Carolyn. I placed each one in a wooden bowl near the front door and let them sit there like questions I was not ready to answer. Emily asked at once, "Are you going to read them?" Placed each one in a wooden bowl near the front door and let them sit there like questions I was not ready to answer. Emily asked once, "Are you going to read them?" "Someday," I said. "Do you hate her?" I looked out the kitchen window at the maple leaves turning orange. "No," I said, "that would be easier." And it was true. Hate would have been clean. But what I felt for Melissa was more complicated love tangled with disappointment, grief, mixed with caution, a mother's memory standing beside a woman's boundary. Eventually, I opened the first letter. Melissa wrote that she had told herself she was protecting me. She wrote that she was ashamed of calling me confused when she knew I was grieving. She admitted she had let Ethan and Amanda use her words because it was easier to believe I was becoming difficult than to believe they were becoming greedy. She did not ask to come over. She did not ask me to drop anything. She only wrote, "I am sorry I helped them make you smaller." That sentence made me cry. Not because it fixed everything, because it finally sounded like truth. I did not invite her back immediately. Forgiveness, I learned, is not a door you throw open just because someone knocks softly after breaking the frame. Sometimes forgiveness begins as a window cracked open an inch enough for air, not enough for entry. So I wrote back. I told her I had received her letter. I told her I was not ready for visits. I told her that if healing ever came between us, it would have to be built with honesty, patience, and no pressure. I signed it Carolyn, then crossed it out, and wrote Mom beneath it. Both names were true. Ethan did not write. For a long while, that silence hurt. Then it taught me something. Some people are more wounded by being exposed than by what they did. They mistake consequences for cruelty and accountability for betrayal. I could not teach my son remorse. I could only stop protecting him from the absence of it. Emily came often. On Saturdays, she helped me restore William's garden. The flower beds had gone wild during the months of family tension. We pulled weeds, trimmed dead branches, and planted lavender near the porch. William had always loved lavender because he said it made the house smell like calm. By early fall, the small purple blooms leaned toward the walkway, and every time I passed them, I felt as if the house was greeting me gently. One afternoon, Emily and I sat on the back steps drinking lemonade. She looked toward the den window and said, "Grandma, you know a lot about this stuff." "What stuff? Records? Deeds? Documents? How to protect yourself?" I smiled faintly. I learned the hard way. Maybe other women need to learn before it gets hard. That idea stayed with me. A month later, with James's guidance and Linda's help, I turned the renovated den into a small community meeting room. Nothing official at first. Just coffee chairs, folders, and conversations. Linda came once a month to explain how county records worked. James volunteered one evening to speak about powers of attorney deeds and why no one should sign anything under pressure. Women from church came. Then their friends came. Then neighbors brought sisters' widows and older cousins who had questions they had been afraid to ask. We called it the Maple Ridge Circle. I never gave legal advice. I simply told women what I wished someone had said to me earlier. Keep copies. Check records. Read before signing. Do not confuse pressure with love. Do not let anyone use your age to steal your voice. Sometimes, women cried at my kitchen table. Sometimes, they laughed with relief when they realized they were not foolish for being afraid. Sometimes, they brought folders in grocery bags, shoe boxes, or old purses, and we helped them make order out of worry. Each time, I felt William near. Not as a ghost, not as a fantasy, as a legacy. He had protected me with records. Now I could help others protect themselves with knowledge. By winter, the house felt warmer than it had in years. Emily came by with soup. Linda brought homemade cookies. James sent a Christmas card that simply said, "To the strongest homeowner I know." I framed it and placed it in the den. On Christmas Eve, Melissa called. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi, Mom," she said. Her voice trembled. "Hi, Melissa." There was a long pause. "I don't expect anything," she said. "I just wanted to hear your voice." I looked at William's photograph on the mantel, at the tree lights, reflected in the window, at the house that had survived the worst my family had done and still made room for grace. "I'm here," I said. That was all I could give. For now, it was enough. The next morning, I opened the front door before sunrise. Cold air touched my face. The maple trees stood bare and quiet. The lavender slept beneath frost. In my hand were the new keys. Behind me was the home William and I had built. Ahead of me was a life I had not expected to begin at 69. They had locked me out. But official records proved my rights. And in the end, those records gave me more than a house. They gave me back myself. If this story stayed with you, I hope you'll like this video and subscribe for more stories about truth, courage, and healing. And please tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand up for yourself against people you loved? Share where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read those comments like letters from friends sitting right here at my kitchen table.